6 for Easter Sunday.
I don't think I'll be trying yogurt in my coffee anytime soon.
I don't think. I know.
Local pork chat is next.
And all social media sites. So remember, this is a news conversation. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to weigh in on the social media site where you're watching. That's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching. Feel free to weigh in to this conversation. Guys, let's get straight to breaking news. If we can pull a live shot of Texas here. Out here, there's a high school in Texas, a mass shooting reported at a high school, and I'm just learning this information as I'm telling you. I'm going to throw up a banner for this story. One person is injured, and I'm going to look at some notes here. This is out of Texas. The Como County Sheriff's Office is investigating a shooting here in this area. A teacher has reportedly been hospitalized, and a student is dead after this shooting at Belvedere High School. And I could be saying that high school's name wrong, so please forgive me if I am. But again, this is out of the Como County area. The sheriff's office, they're investigating this. A student has died and a teacher hospitalized. The campus is under lockdown as this investigation continues. And here's a little bit more of what we know. Deputies were dispatched to this area following reports of a gunfire. Again, a teacher shot by a student and was taken to a San Antonio hospital. There's no word yet on her condition. The student involved here, a 15-year-old boy, has died at the scene. Hill County College Preparatory High School has been placed on lockdown. That's the high school there that you're seeing. You can't see much in this live picture, but you do see some officers standing outside the high school, along with some other personnel there. Law enforcement officials still on that campus. They say the building is secure. Students and staff are also in a secure area, and the threat has been contained. So we don't know much more information on this situation. The story is being updated and will be updated throughout the afternoon, and we'll provide that information to you as we learn more. But again, one injured, and apparently a student is also dead. I don't know if the student who is dead is the shooter, but we do know at least one student, a victim here, is dead, and also a teacher hospitalized. This is a high school out in Como County there in Texas. The Hill Country College Preparatory High School, that is, and that's what you're seeing there on your screen. We'll update you on this and come back around or circle back to the story as we learn more information. Let's bring it back here to the Atlanta area. We have some new details on a shooting at a party in Chamblee. Let me change this banner for you. So this happened here over the weekend. We're getting a look here at the alleged gunman in this triple shooting involving teens. Chamblee police have identified the shooter as Israel Rojas. Police say Rojas was attending a quinceañera at an event hall on Buford Highway over the weekend when a fight broke out, leading to gunfire. Again, involving teens here. 2 14-year-old girls and a 15-year-old boy got shot. And officers working a nearby traffic stop heard these gunshots ring out, and they saw Rojas jump a fence, and that's when they were able to catch him. We do know a little bit about the charges he will face. Reportedly, we just got a press release on this. He's facing multiple charges, including second-degree criminal damage to property and aggravated assault/battery. Again, we don't know what led up to this fight here. That led up to the shooting. Police have not released a motive yet on this case, so we don't know what sparked the initial altercation, but hopefully we can get some more information on this. And just running through the facts one more time, guys, Chamblee police have identified a suspect after 3 teenagers were shot during a quinceañera early Saturday morning. So this happened over the weekend. The update here is they have identified the suspect. Investigators identified that alleged shooter as Israel Rojas. 2 of the victims, again, 14-year-old girls. A third victim was a 15-year-old boy. Police say Rojas was attending this party at an event hall on Buford Highway when a fight broke out first and then leading to the gunfire. And then officers working a traffic stop nearby actually heard those shots and they saw the suspect jumping a fence. And after a brief chase, a lieutenant took Rojas into custody in a nearby parking lot. A firearm was recovered along the path where he ran. And neighbors there expressing shock about the situation. We were able to speak with a neighbor, a resident of that area, saying the shooting is just out of character for this neighborhood and in this area. Again, Rojas is facing multiple charges, including second-degree criminal damage to property and aggravated assault. Moving forward now, some scary moments for passengers on board a Frontier plane landing right here in the city of Atlanta. The alleged threat here was made as the flight from Columbus, Ohio was taxiing to the gate. And let me go ahead and put up a banner for you again. This flight was heading to the Atlanta area, heading to the Atlanta airport, that is. So the pilot took the Airbus A320, that is, to a remote part of the airport where it was surrounded by law enforcement. Frontier calls the threat non-credible, while passengers describe what happened. No one was hurt here from what we know. And again, this was a verbal bomb threat on this plane. No one was hurt. And passengers were bused to the terminal about an hour after they landed. The FBI has taken over the investigation, and with the U.S. Attorney's Office, will decide what charges the man who allegedly made the threat will face. Again, Frontier flight here under investigation for a verbal bomb threat. And just putting up that super for you, that banner for you. Some scary moments for passengers involved here. No one was hurt, and this is being investigated by the FBI. Moving forward to another story here, the war in the Middle East. President Trump issuing a new threat in this war. This is actually new this afternoon. Today, President Trump threatened widespread destruction of Iran's energy resources and other infrastructure if a deal to end the war is not reached soon, he says. Iran fired multiple waves of missiles at Israel today as Operation Epic Fury enters its fifth week with no end in sight. Now, one of those missiles did cause a fire at an oil refinery in Haifa. That's a area in Israel. It followed weekend airstrikes by the U.S. and Israel on Iran's steel and nuclear facilities. And today, President Trump issued this new threat, writing that if Iran doesn't make a deal soon, he says, quote, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island. So that's again from President Trump. The negotiation talks that he says have been happening are sponsored by Pakistan. And again, he keeps mentioning that these are happening while Iran is saying these are actually not happening. So some back and forth going on there. President Trump said over the weekend that progress is being made, but he's also sending more troops to the region, giving him a sizable ground force option to take Karg Island, Iran's main oil terminal. A growing number of experts say a long-term U.S. ground commitment could backfire on the U.S. and turn into a quagmire like the Iraq War. President Trump said over the weekend the Pentagon is preparing to hit 3,000 additional targets of Iran if a deal isn't reached. Again, here, President Trump issuing this new threat this afternoon amid tensions with Iran. He's saying, although he's sending more troops to the area, he's saying that, you know, these talks are ongoing and they're progressing, while Iran is saying, no, they're actually not. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully we can put an end to this war here. All right, guys, let's talk about what Fox 5 News is working on today and bring in our assignment manager, Tanya Mendoza. She has a look at some of the stories that our reporters here are covering. And the first one deals with illegal tire dumping. Hey there, Tanya.
Hi, Jasmine. So, yes, illegal tire dumping. And as you know, we've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks because our Eric Perry had gone out and done some initial stories when a local church reported that they were having a problem with people illegally dumping tires on their property. There's a shot of the church right there. So, it's called the Temple of Faith Apostolic Church. I can't speak today, apparently, but and we've covered the story. So DeKalb County officials took this serious, and kudos to them because they made an arrest. They held a press conference this morning, and we were there. We had our reporter Annie Mapp there. She'll put together all the details, but there's been an arrest. I think they're looking for more people. The church, the initial incident happened on March 23rd. Over 300 tires were found dumped there overnight. And then that was over on Glenfair Road, creating a massive financial and environmental burden to the congregation. Police say they're still looking for 4 individuals with outstanding warrants. Residents are encouraged to report tips via the DeKalb Police Department's app or by texting DeKalb Police DKPD to 847411. So that's what's happening in DeKalb County this morning. Good news that there is an arrest and they have 4 additional suspects that they're trying to round up. Annie Mapp will break that down for us later today and have a full report.
And Tanya, you know, this has been happening in reportedly in several counties across this area. DeKalb now stepping in to put an end to this. Have any other counties spoke out since these illegal tire dumpings have happened?
I don't know that anyone else recently. There may have been a recent case in South Fulton, I believe. I'll have to look into. You know, my brain archive is not as good as the one we have on this computer here, so I'll have to go to this archive and check that out, and maybe let you know later. But it is a problem in Metro Atlanta in general. We've been covering this for years. Unfortunately, this church was plagued with this problem recently, and the good news is that DeKalb County is taking it seriously.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll see, you know, what comes out of this investigation here with this illegal tire dumping, and hopefully this will stop in counties across the Atlanta area. Let's move forward and talk about the Georgia Department of Transportation. They're making some changes to State Route 400, to my understanding. What's happening there?
That's right. Okay, so GDOT is introducing a new Georgia 400 incident response unit. So everybody's familiar with the HERO program that already is going on in Metro Atlanta on the roads. And so this is not to cancel that out. This is to complement it. So they're having a media availability today. That's where Tyler Fingert is heading. And he'll have a full report on what that unit will do to help out drivers on Georgia 400. I don't know if you've ever had to call Georgia 411 or a HERO unit to help you on the side of the road, but I did many years ago when I moved here. And it was life-saving. My tire blew out. I called. They came immediately, pulled over, helped me change the tire, and I got on my way quickly. But sometimes you just get nervous. The roads are really busy, especially during rush hour. To have something happen to you and not feel like you have any support is scary. So this will help out drivers, and Tyler Fingert's going to have the whole story later today.
Yes, and this is a good initiative here, Tanya. Glad to hear that, you know, some people will get support while they're out on State Route 400. So some good news here. And hopefully we can see that conference that they're having, that press conference that they're having here live. But
that's right.
So yes, let's also.
And I just wanted to mention something real quick, Jasmine. A quick update. You know, we've all been monitoring the lines at the airport with the TSA shortage. I do want to mention one thing that's a bit of good news for people heading to the airport. The website's back up. I just pulled it up, and look, the numbers are there. So it's not too bad. 1 minute at the main checkpoint, the north checkpoint, 1 minute lower north checkpoint, 1 minute, and south free check only, 0 wait time. So good news. If you want to use this site, it's back up and working.
Yes, that is true. And I was going to bring that up too. You know, TSA is those wait times are decreasing. I know many people have been voicing frustrations over there at the airport, including TSA workers. So some good news coming out of this. And then also TSA workers are expected to start getting paid today and this week in general, which is also good news.
Yep, I know they're happy. All right, thanks, Jasmine.
All right, Tanya, thanks. We'll let you get back to work, guys. And let's move forward to talk weather now. We know that pollen is bothering you all, and I'm going to scoot over so that our meteorologist, Alex Forbes, can get in. And you all are taking a live look, actually, at the airport there as Alex comes and talks to us about the weather. All right, Alex.
So it's cloudy out there this morning, right? It's going to be a predominantly cloudy day, but we will see some peaks of sunshine as we get into the evening hours. So I think that's the good news in all of this. Now, if you need some rain, I've also got some good news for you. We're going to have the opportunity to pick some of that up in really waves here in the days to come. So let's check out Fox 5 Live Viper right now. Not a whole lot going on. Really didn't expect to see a whole lot going on, but it's not totally quiet. So when we zoom around and see what we're picking up, we have seen some scattered showers down on the south side earlier this morning. There's some more now back down into really Wilkinson County. But when you look up into the Atlanta area, it's relatively quiet. Look up into northwest Georgia, you see some scattered activity through parts of Bartow and Cherokee counties closing in on the Canton area, and that is about it. Otherwise, temperatures, we've been rising through the mid-60s all morning, now into the afternoon. 67 here in Atlanta, up to 73 in Canton, 70 in Thomaston, and 62 over in Blairsville. So out the door for the remainder of the day, I do expect to get into the low 70s. I do expect to see some more breaks in the clouds. So if you're headed out to Truist Park later, don't forget the sunglasses. Trust me, been there, done that on the third base line, and the sun has been in my eyes. So do plan on that. Temperatures, we're going to get into the low 70s pretty much area-wide. 72 in Atlanta, 74 in Canton, 70 in Gainesville, 74 over in Athens, and 76 in Thomaston. You mentioned that pollen. We did get today's number, 728, which puts us in the high range. But Jasmine, last week, we were extremely high. We were double this number, triple, quadruple this number. So at least progress is being made. And as we look ahead toward Easter weekend, we are going to have that chance of rain around. Really, it's going to be around between now and then as well. At its highest, the highest chance of rain there Friday at 60%, but then into Saturday and Sunday, temperatures not quite as warm. Still looking for maybe a couple of storms in the mix, particularly there for Easter Sunday. I'm eyeing later in the day. So any morning egg hunts, maybe the Easter bunnies paying a visit.
Man.
I think the morning's okay.
The morning's
It's the afternoon that we would be watching.
Oh, man. Well, that's if people have their egg hunts in the afternoon, that would kind of put a damper on their plans. But hopefully, 40% isn't that high.
Right. And not a washout, far from a washout. Almost resembles a summertime pattern. Just not quite when you look at the physics.
All right. That sounds good, Alex. Thanks so much for joining us to talk weather. Guys, your time is 1:17. When we return, we'll take a look at some tax filing tips. I don't know if you've filed your taxes yet, but if you're a last-minute filer, you'll want to stick around for this story. All right. Have you filed your taxes yet? If you haven't, don't worry. That tax deadline is approaching, though, and I know many of you are looking for just simple ways to avoid mistakes and make this whole process smoother. So Exit Wealth CEO Justin Farmer joins us today to break down last-minute tax tips, some key reminders, and free resources, that can help you during this time. Justin, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jasmine. Good to see you. I don't think I've in my life met someone who likes preparing their taxes. I know you don't. I know I don't, right? Who wants to go dig into the drawers and find the documents, right?
Right. Absolutely. You're right there. It is just a tedious process here, and I know many people get frustrated with it. So what are some of the most important basics people should know when it comes to filing their taxes?
And you know, it's funny. The IRS, the federal government, doesn't give you an option. You're required. Let's get to it.
That's right.
I mean, you could refuse to pay them and then you find yourself in prison. So let's not do that.
I wouldn't do that.
Let's not do that. I mean, Willie Nelson tried it and it didn't end well. All right, so let's talk about what you got to do. You got to get your documents in order. That's just the first step in your affairs. You got to get your W-2s, your 1099s, K-1s on investments. You also want to think about unreimbursed business expenses. A lot of people don't think of those things that they did for business, especially if they work for themselves. Your unreimbursed mileage that you've had, you can write off a portion of a lease if you lease your car. Also, you've got capital expenditures that are highly deductible now with the new tax codes. You can take all of the depreciation in 1 year in that tax year, and that's talking about computers and phones, any a fax machine or a shredder or any sort of expense that was related to your office. You can write some or all of that off. Don't forget about your home office. What this really leans into, Jasmine, is this. Are you more of a W-2 person who will take the standard IRS deduction, that standard tax deduction? That's most Americans. But if you're a homeowner and you have a lot of complicated write-offs, if you are a business owner, then odds are you are going to do very careful itemization of your expenses, all of those different kinds of expenses, not just involved with your business, but also you want to keep track of any charitable contributions, donations that you've made throughout the year. This is the thing, Jasmine. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. And the more organized you are, and the more thorough you are, and the more you understand the tax code, the more money you can keep.
Justin, thanks for sharing this information here. Can you talk about who typically benefits from itemizing? You said some homeowners and business owners, correct?
Absolutely. Okay. There are so many intricacies involved when you're a homeowner, things that you do to keep up your home. If you have a home office that you're legitimately doing work out of, you have to show profitability about 2 of every 5 years, or the IRS will call it a hobby. But if you have a side gig or a side business and you have a home office to help facilitate some of that work, you can be both a W-2 and you can have an LLC on the side, and you can really set yourself up for doing a lot of itemized deductions. Again, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. As it starts to get more and more complicated, that's where you're going to want to seek out a tax professional to help you with that return.
Yeah, very important to seek out a tax professional when you just need some help. You have extra documents you need to sift through. So if somebody's not ready to file by the 15th, or if they can't meet that deadline, just in general, what options do they have? You raised your hand.
Guilty as charged, Jasmine. Yes. Here's what's really cool. The IRS allows you to file an extension. It's totally free. So if you just can't get your documentation together by the 15th of April, either your CPA is backed up or your business is complicated and you're waiting on another K-1 or a 1099, or you're just a procrastinator or some combination therein. If you just need more time, no problem. It's a simple form. You can go online, Google it, or use AI, and it'll show you. It's very simple how to get that extension. Here is the key thing to know, though. You can apply for an extension to file your taxes, but you cannot get an extension to pay a portion of your taxes. So if you owe, You need to figure that out and make what's called an estimated payment by that April 15th deadline. If you don't and you end up owing, Jasmine, you're going to get hit with penalties and interest, and that is no fun. My least favorite check to write is anything that goes to the IRS, but maybe that's just me.
Yes, and now, you know, for people who do owe money, what happens if they can't pay that full amount right away? What can they do if they can't pay that full amount?
That is an excellent question. So here's the good news. If you're in a bind, the IRS will work with you. What you don't want to do is ignore them and just hope that somehow it magically goes away, or no, that is the worst tact. Again, what you want to do is be communicative, and they'll set up a payment plan for you. And actually, they're quite generous with the terms that they can set up for people. At this point, you also want to really seek some outside help. And there are free resources and local assistance that you can get, Jasmine.
That sounds good. And speaking of resources, can you give us, pretty quickly here, what resources are available through the IRS?
Yep, I think it's on your graphic right there. Start with irs.gov. That's the official site of the Internal Revenue Service. It's a thorough website. It was redesigned shortly after COVID, and it's actually quite helpful. And it's just chock full of information to make sure that you're doing things well and you're doing it on time. Also in Atlanta, you can look for a local VITA program. Stands for Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, for free. These volunteers will help you. Also, United Way of Greater Atlanta offers free tax preparation services. So again, start with irs.gov, but also look at unitedwayatlanta.org, unitedwayatlanta.org. Get knowledgeable, y'all, on your tax situation and your preparation and dates, and then it won't be so stressful. You'll get it done, you'll move on, and we can all enjoy a nice spring.
All right, Justin, thank you so much for giving us all this information, these last-minute tax filing tips. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, Jasmine. Thanks.
All right, guys, your time is 1:27. When we come back, we'll talk about what's trending on fox5atlanta.com. Welcome back to Fox 5 News Live. I'm Jasmine Cornell. Thanks for joining us here on Fox Local and also on social media where we're streaming on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all those platforms. So thanks for joining us. First, let's talk about NASA. We know that the Artemis 2 rocket is launching soon this week. Pretty cool here. So the countdown is on for the Artemis 2 rocket launch. That launch expected to happen on Wednesday. This is the second Artemis mission, but the first to have humans on board, sending 4 astronauts around the Earth and then around the moon for a test flight. So this is pretty cool here. Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen will all be traveling farther than humans, guys, have ever gone deep into space to the moon. They say they're prepared and ready to do their job. And guys, we'll be following this story. This is pretty cool. Hope those astronauts make it there safely and make it back safely. Moving forward, the NCAA Final Four men's tournament. Let's talk about that. I know many of you have been watching basketball here recently, the March Madness tournament. So second seed UConn joins third seed Illinois, and 1 seeds Arizona and Michigan in the Final Four. This is so exciting here. Last year, all 4 top seeds reached the Final Four for only the second time since seeding began in 1979. So the Huskies play the Fighting Illinois at 6 Saturday. Michigan and Arizona face off just before 9. The women's Final Four bracket will be determined tonight after matches between Michigan and Texas, and then TCU and South Carolina. So good luck to all those teams there. And, you know, to everyone watching, have fun, enjoy this tournament here. NCAA Final Four men's tournament set. All right, guys, let's go ahead and talk about what's trending on fox5atlanta.com and bring in Joyce Lupiani. She's working on she's our digital content creator there, and she has a look at some stories that are trending. And first, it looks like one story that's trending, Joyce, is the missing 8-year-old. So he has been rescued, which is some good news in the story.
Hi, Jasmine. So yes, some very good news indeed. So what happened is this boy who is 8 years old, he is autistic and he is nonverbal. And apparently he lives like really close to water. So I guess he left his house, he kind of ran away or wandered away. But because he lives so close to water, like the police and everybody in the community started looking for him like right away. And as they were looking for him, somebody heard like someone crying. And one of the people in the community and the police officer went and found the boy like clinging to a tree branch in the water. So they jumped in and they pulled him out. The whole thing was caught on the police officer's body camera. And the little boy's fine. They did take him to like the hospital to be checked out, but he is fine. But they posted a video on their Facebook page, you know, just to remind people, you know, about Logan's List and like, you know, different resources that are available to families like this. And, you know, they wanted to let everybody know that there was a happy ending.
Yes, a very happy ending indeed. And, you know, good news for everyone involved here, the police officer, the boy. Do we know how long he was missing? I can't imagine being this child in this swamp, in this water here. How long was he missing in this area?
They did not say that, but I don't think he was missing very long. Okay. Like I said, because of the fact that he has autism, the family, it appears, called the police immediately, and then like they responded like right away. So I don't think it was very long.
That's some good news there. And again, like the resources that you just mentioned is so important for people to have knowledge on them and to use them when it comes to situations like this so we can bring people to safety.
Yes, it is. And once again, that's Logan's List, and it just came into existence like a couple of years ago. And it's basically a database about families who have children or someone in their household that has a special need. And like the police, if they get called out to this house, they can put in the address and it will give them that information right away so that they kind of know before they get there what they might be dealing with.
All right, Joyce, thanks for sharing more information on this story here. Let's move forward and talk about the early voting that's underway in District 14 for this election here, congressional runoff here. What's been happening here? How long is this early voting period?
So, right, this is the runoff for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat in the 14th district. As you remember, she resigned like back in January. So they had a special election in March, and initially they had like 20 people who wanted to take Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat, but it came down to two. One of them is the Republican Clay Fuller, and then the Democrat Sean Harris. Well, neither one of them got the majority. Harris, the Democrat, he got like 37%, and Fuller got like 35%. So now they're having a runoff. So early voting started today, and then the election will be on April 7th.
Got it here. And my brain's not working here. District 14, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yes, this is the runoff for that. So thanks for sharing information on here. And guys, if you're in that district, make sure you get out and vote. Voting is so important here, and this is a big runoff election. Last story here that's trending that we're going to talk about here. Atlanta has ranked pretty high here on the list of healthiest cities. Okay, that's interesting.
Yes, it did. For once, it came in like really high on a list. They came in number 11, I think. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember. I'm having like a total whatever. But they did score like really high for like fitness. I think they were number 3 nationwide, and they scored like 17 for food, 26 for green space, and 57 for healthcare. And this study, which was done by Wallet Hub, it took a look at like 180 cities. So yeah, Atlanta came in really high, number 11, almost made that top 10. Unfortunately, a couple other cities in the state of Georgia didn't really do that well. So like Columbus came in at 170, and there's only 180 cities. And then Augusta came in at 166. But we have like the full list and kind of a breakdown of the scores on our website for people who want to look at it some more.
I was going to ask you about Augusta. That's my hometown there. I didn't think they were going to make it high on that list, but I'm glad to
Oh my
hear
gosh,
that.
wow. Yeah. Good thing you're in Atlanta now, so you can be much more healthy.
Absolutely. I was going to say Atlanta does offer much more than Augusta, but in general, does offer a lot of gyms, a lot of restaurants, healthy eating restaurants, and various grocery stores that focus on that as well. So that's good news for the city of Atlanta.
Absolutely.
All right, Joyce, thanks for joining us to talk about what's trending on fox5atlanta.com. Guys, let's move forward to a museum exhibit. So 50 years ago this week, a couple of guys in California founded a little company called Apple. And as you know, that company has been shaping technology, design, and culture ever since. We all have Apple devices, whether you have a watch, phone, or whatever. My dad and I, we like to argue back and forth sometimes playfully because he has a Samsung and his messages always turn up green on my phone. So you know how that is. And now a Metro Atlanta Museum is telling the story of Apple, which is pretty cool, through a fascinating new exhibit opening to the public on Wednesday. So this week, Good Day Atlanta's Paul Milliken has a closer look at this exhibit.
Hey everybody, chances are you are watching this right now on an Apple device of some sort. Maybe it's your iPhone or your iPad or your big monitor, because Apple is part of our lives. Over the past 50 years, it has touched every aspect of our lives, and that's why it is the focus of a new exhibit at the MIMS Museum of Technology and Art right here in Roswell. And we are always happy to be here with the executive director. Rena, great to see you.
Oh, thanks for coming back, Paul.
It's my pleasure. How could we stay away? This is a really big deal for the museum. You know, you hear exhibit and you think maybe it's a room or two. This is enormous, Rena.
Yeah, we had to stop saying exhibit and say exhibition.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's an entire wing of the museum. Why is this something you wanted to bring to the museum?
You know, Apple has had such a global impact.
Yes,
people are so loyal to the brand. People know the stories. You know, it's just been it's just something that we thought people would really love to see, and we could celebrate the 50th.
And a true walk down memory lane too. And so this is sort of like the spirit of Apple here. Explain what this room is.
The spirit of Apple is it's dedicated really to all of us, the artist in us, the musician in us, the engineer, the dreamer.
Yes,
This is where you can play and be inspired.
Yes, the dreamer, the engineer, and the dancer. Tell me about this dance floor right here, Rena.
Oh, this is great. So you see the icons and you kind of step on them and they tell you a little bit about it. But after hours, it's a great dance floor. We learned that. It worked just perfectly.
Yeah, this is cool. And you see, Tim, if you go back down, you just stepped on the messaging icon there. So then a little thing pops up and it tells you a little bit more about that icon. Now let's walk over here. Apple has certainly had an impact on the music industry.
Yes, we knew we had to do something for you. Your holiday song.
Because I use GarageBand to do those songs.
There you go. So here you go. This is for you.
Yeah, and so you've got the different instruments and you can work together and create your own band, which is very cool. And then over here, the visual artist in all of us, right?
Yes, I have to tell you, my middle school art teacher said, I'll give you a B, but don't do this.
Okay, all right, so we're not going to judge you. No, we're not going to judge you up here. But how does this work?
Okay, well, just come over and see where it says to start.
Drawing. Okay, so we're going to do, let's see, our anchors for the 10 o'clock show. We'll do a little Alex, Joanne, and Natalie, and we're going to hit submit right there, and there it goes.
There they are.
Yeah, that is very cool. Again, a great way to just remind everybody that there are so many ways that we can apply what Apple has done to our own lives.
We really can.
Yeah.
We can. And it's useful, but it's also fun.
It's also fun.
So.
Yeah. And that's a perfect way to describe this museum, too. It is useful. It's also a lot of fun. Congratulations on a wonderful new exhibit.
Thank you. We open on Wednesday, April 1st. That was the day they signed their incorporation papers. So that is the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
So at noon, we're going to open the doors to everyone.
50 years of Apple. And in fact, wait, I should commemorate that. So I'm going to hit clear right here. We're going to clear this, and I'm going to say, Happy B-Day, Apple. Don't you dare judge my handwriting. Submit, and there it is right there. 50 years of Apple being celebrated right now at the MIMS Museum of Technology and Art.
All right, guys, that was our Paul Milliken there taking us inside this new exhibit exploring 50 years of Apple. Pretty cool there. That's in Roswell. And again, you can see that starting on Wednesday. Your time is 1:42. Up next, we'll take you to Douglasville, where there's an interactive and educational fair housing exhibit. Welcome back to Fox 5 News Live, guys. We are continuing to follow that breaking news situation out in Bulverde, Texas here. And this is actually not a mass shooting. So I did have that incorrect earlier. This is not a mass shooting, but the shooting did lead to the death of a teacher. So let me read some of the notes that I have here. A teacher has been hospitalized, excuse me, not the death, but she was injured, so hospitalized, and a student is dead after a shooting here at a high school in Bulverde. So teacher hospitalized and the student is dead. The Carmel County Sheriff's Office is investigating this incident that happened on the campus there, which is still under lockdown, according to reports that we have, as this investigation continues. So deputies were dispatched to this area not too long ago following reports of the gunfire. A teacher again was shot by a student and taken to a San Antonio hospital. There is no word yet on her condition. The student involved, a 15-year-old boy, died at the scene, and this happened at the Hill County College Preparatory High School. Again, it's placed on lockdown right now, and Como officials say that law enforcement is on campus, and they say the building is secure. Students and staff are also in a secure area, and the threat has been contained. But this is a very scary situation here that broke out over here in Bulverde, Texas. Again, a teacher was shot by a teen student, and a student is dead. We don't know if the student who shot the teacher is the student who died on scene there, but hopefully we can get some more information on this as this story unfolds. Again, you're taking a live look here, and we're a little bit farther from the school right now, but you can see officers there. They do say that the scene is secure, so that's good news. And again, we'll continue to follow this situation as it develops, and our thoughts, of course, are with the school and the teacher involved in this, also with the family of that teen student. Again, teacher shot by a teen student and a student dead in the shooting here out of Bulverde, Texas. Excuse me, Bulverde, Texas, that is. Guys, let's move forward and bring it back here to the Atlanta area. The Keys to Equity exhibit is now running in Douglasville, and you can explore how past and present housing decisions shape opportunity, neighborhoods, and your quality of life. So a very good event here. Fox 5's Chris Rosenthal takes us inside. And Chris, what's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the, like you said, the Keys to Equity Fair Housing exhibit. It's here in Douglasville at the Hunter Memorial Park here, actually in the Innovation Lab here. Started in March, started last week, goes until April 25th. Open to the public. You can come by in the afternoon and come visit. And yeah, like you were talking about, it's, you know, this is a really good way to see how policies, laws, and policies throughout history have really shaped the communities that we live in today. You know, so this is just a really large, expansive exhibit here, and I am joined by Amy McCoy. She's a fair housing activist, and she is the curator of this this exhibit here. Yes. And tell me, first of all, why you know what this is about here.
So thank you again for coming. Actually being able to talk about fair housing is very important because it's laws that was already written, but we need help in making sure that it's being enforced. So after 22 years of being in the real estate industry and living and practicing and being able to have these experiences that people that own homes or say renters, things of that sort, the challenges that they face mostly can actually be changed, that experience, by the policies that have been put in place. So now it's showing how we can navigate through those systems by making sure they're informed so they know how to advocate for themselves properly. And so that's one of the reasons why I created the Keys to Equity, because this is history in the past, but it's how we are able to remove those systemic roadblocks in order to make sure that we're properly preparing a more equitable society and we don't fall into the same traps we've had before. Just to kind of even show you just one little thing, when we're here in Zone 1, we talk about how things have been separate by law. And we may start from 1896 with Plessy versus Ferguson, which talks about the separate but equal. But I'm going to take you over here to zone 2 real quick, because one of the things that have been put in place, the federal government said, hey, let's take a look and see what we can do to be better, which is why the Kerner Commission report was so important, because here in 1968, when it was published, it then established that we're living in 2 different societies, the separate and unequal. And it's basically taking a look at the policies we put in place regarding racial diversity in housing and having access to certain things. So this is showing the fundamentals before we actually get to the Fair Housing Act.
And you know, interesting thing, you know, you talk about these are a lot of federal laws and things like that, but we also, you know, you put it,
Georgia context.
You put a lot of this into context here in Georgia. So, you know, some of the places that we see today shaped by these.
Yes.
One interesting example I saw, you know, over here we talked about was sort of what you call sort of the Berlin Wall here in Atlanta.
So most people don't even know that Atlanta itself had its own version of the Berlin Wall, which was called the Peyton Wall. So this is actually over in the Cascade area, and it separated where black people were able to purchase, live, and how it's separated from our white counterparts. And so it took the Realtist organization, which is the oldest minority-owned group that is a trade, just like we have the Realtors Association, we also have the Realtist organization that fights and champions for democracy and housing. And because of that, we were able to get that Peyton Wall removed.
And, you know, this goes all the way from, you know, Civil War, end of Civil War era, all the way up to now. What do you hope people get from this?
Well, again, it's all about being able, if you're informed, then you know how to properly advocate for yourself. If you see that there are challenges with policies being written. For instance, we have House Bill 295 that's currently on the table, but it really is a modern day version of the 1866 vagrancy law. So you have to be able to see what has been done in the past so that we're not repeating those mistakes for the future. How do we properly plan policy if we're repeating the same old Jim Crow policies?
As they say, history often repeats itself. So thank you for joining us. Thanks for the little bit of the tour here. Just so you guys know, again, if you want to come visit this, the Hunter Memorial Park in Douglasville, it's open from 2 to 6 to the public, and then in the mornings open for school groups, other civic groups, completely free to come to Monday through Friday, but they're also open on Saturday, April 11th. What time Saturday?
Correct. Saturday, April 11th will be hosted from 10 to 2 p.m. And the beautiful thing about that day is that is the actual anniversary of when the legislation was actually written by the President Lyndon B. Johnson. And that happened after the unfortunate assassination of Martin Luther King. So we hope that people will come, learn history, because it does start then, but it leads all the way up to 2026, where we are currently facing challenges with even in the Fair Housing Act. So please come be informed.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's and completely free. So
completely free. And you can even take Connect Douglas, which is public transportation to get here as well. And if you are not able to make it before April 25th, you can check it out online at thekeys2equity.com.
All right, April McCoy, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you, Amy McCoy.
All right, Chris, thanks for taking us inside this Douglasville housing exhibit. Sounds like it is working for a good cause to build equitable communities. So thanks, Chris, for joining us live to talk about this. I have Tom next to me now, and he's going to talk about what's happening on the Pulse. Hey there, Tom.
You know, what a great if I had a kid, you know, in primary school right now, I would want him to walk through that exhibit, because just to learn about history and all that, you know, our society went through in the past 5-6 decades or so. It's all displayed right there for you to see. So so great that they're doing it. An informed society is a better society. All right, Jasmine, I got a question for you. Okay. Are you ever distracted by the music you're listening to in your car? All right. So if you got a tune on and you're like so into it that you're not focusing on the road ahead of you.
Probably so. Okay. I'm pretty sure that has happened before.
Yeah, well, it turns out that that's the case, because researchers say the type of music you listen to could, in fact, distract you. Fast tempo songs could lead to overstimulation. Songs that are slow can make you a little sleepy. Experts say that more than half of the recent Billboard 100 hits, we're talking about artists like Taylor Swift tracks, considered too fast for safe driving. So tonight at 7 o'clock on The Pulse, which you, of course, can watch right here on Fox Local and on air on Fox 5 Atlanta, we're going to be talking about our favorite hits and whether they distract us while behind the wheel. I can't get over it. Some are great driving songs, you know?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you need that music to get you
to where you're going, right? And get you through Atlanta traffic.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that tonight, 7 o'clock. We want you to weigh in, fox5atlanta.com/thepulse. Leave your comments. Of course, we read a lot of them on the air. So we're looking forward to seeing you tonight at 7.
Well, sounds good. And, you know, I listen to Taylor Swift on the way home and stuff.
Are you overstimulated?
No, she doesn't distract me.
All right. I guess depends what song you listen to, right?
That's true. Well, Tom, thanks for talking about what people can see on the Pulse, and make sure y'all weigh into that conversation. Thanks, Tom.
Sure.
All right, guys, we're going to take a live look at the airport, but we are hearing that the situation there is getting better. So that's some good news, and you can look here for yourself. Last week, we were seeing long lines at the airport here in Atlanta. But, you know, the TSA wait times website is now up for Atlanta, and the times are very, you know, very short here. Main checkpoint is 3 minutes. North checkpoint, 4 minutes. Lower North says 0 according to the website. And then south is pre-check only. But again, you can see here the main checkpoint, people are moving easily through the line here. It's not long, it's not snaking. So that's some good news here, especially since we've been seeing some, you know, just chaos here at the airport. Again, this is the Atlanta airport that we're taking a look at. And also some other news out of the situation. TSA expected to get paid today, which is also great news. I believe that they were told that they needed to report back to work over the weekend. But they are expected to get paid starting today, which is very good. I don't know anyone who wants to work without being paid. So again, I just wanted to give you a look here at the main checkpoint at the Atlanta airport, so you can see for yourself that things are getting better. And it has also been reported that ICE agents will be there to assist. They deployed there last week, and reportedly they're still at the airport and at airports across the country to assist TSA only. Also, before we go, let's take a quick look at the Artemis, or at some space news here. Look at that. That's pretty cool, guys. I lived in Huntsville for a little while, kind of the space capital there, the NASA capital, if you will. But Artemis 2 is expected to launch this weekend, or excuse me, this Wednesday, that is. And it's supposed to send 4 astronauts to the moon. So we wanted just to give you a live look at this Artemis 2 rocket in Cape Canaveral, Florida. That a launch expected to happen on Wednesday. All right, that's pretty cool there. Thanks, guys, for joining us here on Fox 5 News Live. I'm Jasmine Cornell. Don't go anywhere. Our news continues right at 2.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for being here. We've got a lot of news to cover, and I want to start with a breaking story out of Texas that we're following closely because we're learning that a student has shot a teacher at a Texas high school before fatally killing himself. Now, this is according to police. This happened at Hill Country College Preparatory High School in Bulverde. The Comal County Sheriff's Office said this all in a social media post letting us know what unfolded. We know that the teacher was rushed to a hospital near San Antonio, so that gives you an idea of where this is happening in Texas's southern hill country. The sheriff's office did not have an update on that teacher's condition, but they say that the student was male and 15 years old and died at the scene. A spokesperson for the sheriff's office also tells the Associated Press that the student did die from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The school was put on lockdown and students were taken to a middle school to be reunited with their parents. As this is a developing situation, we'll continue to keep you updated as we learn any new details. But I want to bring you back a little closer to home here because we have an interesting story that we're following. There was a book stop tour in Decatur on Friday, and Senator Cory Booker was there, and our own Senator Raphael Warnock also in attendance. But there was a woman who was wearing a hijab and a shirt protesting Israel at that event who was told the ticket that she paid for was no good. So our Rob DeRienzo joins us live to make sense of the situation. Rob, what are you learning this afternoon?
Hey there, Ariel. Good afternoon to you. Well, we've been digging into this really since right after it happened on Friday. It happened right here behind me, the First Baptist Church of Decatur. I want to take you right to this video that viewers sent to us. Now, this woman, Jawahir Sharwani, says security told her that she would not be allowed to enter the First Baptist Church to hear Senator Cory Booker and Senator Raphael Warnock speak. This event Friday was promoting Senator Booker's new book. Now, the Stone Mountain resident was wearing a hijab and a shirt that said, "Stop arming Israel." And she's a familiar face at many Metro Atlanta protests, but she says she was simply there to listen. Take a listen to the moment this all happened.
You remaining on this property is not legal, and if you don't leave soon, I will have to trespass you.
This was shameful what transpired. I literally saw a woman in hijab standing in line, being bullied to get out of line, and that is unacceptable. And I don't care whether you agree or disagree with her thoughts, her views, or her God. That is irrelevant. That's not how we treat people here. And I'm still proud to be an American, but I'm not proud of how we're conducting ourselves today.
Ariel, that was the second soundbite I wanted you to listen to, but Sharwani did say she got a refund at the end of all of this, but I want to take you to the soundbite I was intending to play a moment ago. If you could cue up that moment where all of this happened. Okay, well, we're hearing that you don't have that soundbite, so okay, let's take a listen to it.
Okay, and I didn't do anything. So security officer, he approached me when I was in the line, and he said, "You can't go in there." And I said, "Why I can't go in there?" And he said, "Well, he didn't like. He wasn't like." I was like, "I got a ticket. I want to go inside. I'm going inside. I'm going inside. I got a ticket." He kept insisting and treating him. I was like, the way I look, you're not letting me in there. The way I dress, you're not letting me in there. I'm a Muslim, or I'm not doing anything. Why are you not letting me in there?
So certainly a very tense situation out there, Ariel, on Friday. Should be pointed out that we did hear from Decatur police a little while ago. They say they did respond, but since everyone cooperated, there was no need for any arrests or any further escalation. But you could see how tense that moment was, and then those other people speaking up for that woman. Now, just a little while ago, I did get comment from an aide for Senator Booker that said Cory is grateful for the opportunity to have this thoughtful discussion with folks in Atlanta at this event. Admittance or security issues were handled by the venue. Now, of course, we did reach out to the First Baptist Church for their side of the story, but we're still waiting to hear back. So a lot of emotions here. The good news is no one was arrested, or this didn't escalate further, but this woman is left with some serious questions about why she was not allowed into this event. She had a ticket for it. Ariel?
Yeah, Rob, really interesting situation, and I'm glad you were able to try to speak to everybody involved to try to get an understanding as to what's going on, and I know you're waiting to hear back from the church. So as we take a look at this situation, I'm curious about the security protocol for that event, since maybe that seems like where this started. What was that supposed to look like? Do you know?
Well, I do know at the door, these actually front doors right here behind me, everybody was getting wanded, everyone getting searched. Pretty standard protocol for when you have two big dignitaries in the House, which of course Senator Cory Booker and our own Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock. So security protocols were in place. What was more puzzling to Sharmani was essentially she says she was searched, she was wanded, and she was allowed to go inside. And then at some point in that process, she was not allowed even after she was screened. So certainly a lot of questions here lingering.
Rob, a final question for you here as we try to understand this situation. What does she really want to come out of all of this? Obviously, she's sharing her experience and she feels frustrated. What's her goal here?
Well, when I talked to her on Friday, and again, this was a couple hours after all of this happened, she was very upset. She came to this country for an expression of free speech, and she said she was intending to do that by wearing her shirt. She was planning on going in there and peacefully taking her stance on the issue, which is a pro-Palestinian point of view. So she really felt like this was antithetical to what America stands for, and she wants to see some answers and some protocol changes, or at least a little more clarity about what exactly happened.
Rob, I always appreciate our conversations. Thanks for sharing this story with us and letting us know what you know so far. And of course, as you try to get more information from that church, I know you'll bring it to us. So Rob DeRienzo, thank you so much. We'll let you get back to it. As we continue here, you guys, I want to keep you updated on everything happening at the Atlanta airport, because we know that lines are actually easing so far at Hartsfield-Jackson International. But the good news is, as we take a look at this, the TSA wait times page is back online at the Atlanta airport. It was down for a few days amid those record lines because TSA agents were not being paid. But as of the last hour, I've just learned from the Transportation Security Administration, they are confirming most of their workers got paid today for at least 2 paychecks that were missed amid the ongoing partial government shutdown. So this is good news. They've received some back pay, and we're working to get more details as to whether or not that is all the money they are set to receive. But it does seem like that might be helping the situation. Yesterday, we were at the airport taking a look at things and trying to understand what was going on and how things were faring for the last day of the weekend. And it seemed that lines were getting a little bit better. So we're going to continue to monitor this situation and see how things progress. If you guys are at the airport or you start to hear something differently, of course, let us know. But this is really something we continue to monitor. That TSA wait times page is back up for Hartsfield-Jackson, so you can check that. But speaking of the airport, I want to let you know about a crazy situation that we're following here in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom, and it involves a Frontier Airlines flight. Scary moments for the passengers on board, because the airline says a passenger made a verbal bomb threat on board flight 2539 yesterday afternoon. The alleged threat was made as the flight from Columbus, Ohio, was taxiing to the gate. The pilot took this plane, which was an Airbus 320, to a remote part of the airport, and it was surrounded immediately by law enforcement. Frontier calls this threat not credible, but take a listen, because a passenger was describing what happened.
The flight attendant told him to sit back down. He wasn't having any part of it. Everything seemed to be fine. And, but I think the other stewardess had already made the phone call at that point. And I think once you make that phone call to Atlanta PD, I don't think you can walk it back.
Incredible. You can see people with their arms raised on board that flight. So as we continue to monitor this situation, we'll let you know what else transpired. We do know no one was hurt. Passengers were bused to the terminal about an hour after they landed, and the FBI is now investigating. The U.S. Attorney's Office is going to decide what charges the man who allegedly made this threat will face, and we'll continue to keep you updated there. But real quick, you guys, Georgians, this is for you. Heads up, because a new bill in the state legislature is trying to help you reclaim unclaimed funds or recover that money. Lawmakers have passed this bill here recently, and it now includes an exact match system that's basically going to help simplify the claims process when you're looking for money that you are owed. It is Senate Bill 403, and it would make it easier for residents to get back money held by the state, including items like old utility deposits and other owed amounts. So this is something we're going to continue to keep you updated on. The bill heads back for final approval after the House made some changes, but we'll keep you updated as this progresses through the legislature. legislature. But ultimately, the goal is to try to help you reclaim property that's been considered abandoned and streamline the process if you are an heir to claim funds. And in certain cases, you would no longer need, if you're an heir, to have a probate court order and could instead submit a signed affidavit if the value of the property does not exceed $7,500. So I know this will be good news for a lot of you guys, and we'll continue to keep you updated. But let's talk about something unfolding in DeKalb County this afternoon, because we've talked a lot about the illegal tire dumping that's been happening at a church there. And now the county's been cracking down, and we've learned that from where some of those tires have been dumped. Annie, it's great to see you. What are you learning this afternoon?
Hey, Ariel, good afternoon. We're actually at the Temple of Faith Ministries here in DeKalb County, and we've been covering these stories now for a few weeks after the pastor reported to us that he had been dealing with this issue of tires being dumped behind the property. I mean, he's talking about hundreds of tires that just were filling the back of this area. So finally, he reported this to police, and they have been doing the investigation and again have been able to make arrests in this case. But during a press conference this morning, DeKalb County leaders say this issue is not limited to the church. They're also seeing this in different neighborhoods, and they are saying that they will not tolerate this. As you mentioned, they have arrested 10 people who are accused of illegally dumping tires across the county, and they believe 4 other people are also involved in this crime, so they're looking for 4 other suspects as well. We do want you to take a look at the footage that we took as we were covering this story last week. You can see just the amount of tires, again, that were just covering this property. DeKalb police arrested suspect Joseph Franklin for allegedly committing the crime tied to this church. Officers report he was nearby driving a U-Haul truck with 30 used tires inside when they stopped him. He now faces 2 charges of illegal dumping. Police announced this morning they have also arrested, again, 9 other suspects for doing similar crimes as well. According to council officials, a large number of the suspects involved in these crimes are coming from other counties. Just take a listen to what they said.
This sends a clear message that illegal dumping will not be tolerated in DeKalb County. And also, we will find you and we will hold you accountable. Illegal tire dumping is costing DeKalb County thousands of dollars and its taxpayers. Money that could be better used for public safety as well as community beautification.
Yeah, and the leader here at the church told us that he's the one who had to pay the bill for all of those tires to be removed from his property. Other people across the county who have faced similar issues also have to foot that bill as well, Ariel. So it's been a very difficult situation for folks to have to deal with, to have to come to church on Sunday and then make this discovery. He's described it being a very frustrating situation. You know, hopefully now that some arrests have started to be made, they will start to see less of this, hopefully no more of this in the future.
Annie, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a church should be the last place that people treat like their personal garbage can. And the fact that this disrespect was happening here, I mean, there's not that you should be dumping your tires, but of all places, right? So it's good to see that the county's been able to crack down on this. The church has been raising their voices saying we need help, and now 10 people arrested. Really quick final question for you here. Did the county say whether they anticipate further arrests in this, or do they think that they caught the people who were primarily responsible?
Right, so we know 10 people have been arrested so far. Police report they are looking for at least 4 other folks who are involved in illegally dumping tires across the county. They do believe it's possible that more people could be doing this as well. So they say it's very important that if someone sees someone possibly dumping tires or any suspicious activity, to definitely give police a call. That way they can continue to crack down on this situation.
Annie, thank you so much for letting us know where this story stands. I appreciate it. We'll let you get back to it and see you again later this evening as you continue to gather some more information. Some of you are asking here in our chat how dumping tires or littering can be an arrestable offense, and especially if depends on the ordinances by the county and if there are enough tires dumped. You heard that they were working to crack down on this. This is what we're seeing here. It can be an arrestable offense. So we have more information on fox5atlanta.com. But it's a situation where if you're a repeat offender and this continues to happen, the county can increase the penalties for what we're seeing. So we'll keep you updated as this progresses. But it has been a severe situation ongoing there in DeKalb, and the county wants to make sure it stops. As we continue, I want to let you know really quickly that if you have information on this story, contact Atlanta Police, because as of right now, they are searching for 3 suspects in connection with a shooting that damaged a school bus last week. Investigators say the 3 suspects were seen walking with a 20-year-old who was shot in this incident, and 2 children on the bus received minor scratches from broken glass. But ultimately, Atlanta Police are asking for your help to identify the 3 suspects after that gunfire broke out last week. It shattered the window of a school bus and hurt a man, but they were seen again, those 3 individuals, walking before the shooting in the 2600 block of Campbellton Road on March 25th. So we'll continue to keep you updated if we get any new information, but if you know anything, give Crime Stoppers and Atlanta Police a call. Okay, guys, some of you are asking here on TikTok, YouTube, what is the latest with the Iran war and the ongoing Department of Homeland Security shutdown? So let's talk about it, because as of today, I just mentioned a little bit ago, TSA has announced that its workers are now getting paid. They got paid today with at least 2 paychecks that had been missed as part of the ongoing government shutdown. We know that because TSA workers are getting paid, lines at some of these airports should start to subside, but we're not sure just how quickly that's going to take for some of the bigger airports and maybe some smaller airports where TSA agents may have left their positions entirely because they needed to make ends meet with new roles. So let's get into it, because things are smoother at some of the busier airports like Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International. But during the ongoing government shutdown, lawmakers have not been any closer to getting this legislation passed and actually fully funding the Department of Homeland Security. The Senate tried to fund the Department of Homeland Security last week, as we had talked about. But as we've taken a look at this, one thing that we've learned is that when we saw that legislation last week, not only did the Senate try to fund most of the Department of Homeland Security last week, but House Republicans were truly upset that they left out funding for ICE and Customs and Border Patrol and said, we're not going to sign this. So they passed their own bill to fund all of the Department of Homeland Security, including ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, for 2 months. But this funding did not include legislation that would have reforms for immigration agents, things like face masks and changes to tactics and policies, something that Democrats have said that they want. And there's no way that Senate Democrats are going to support that aspect of the legislation. So it's really a yo-yo back and forth, because last week we thought maybe we had a deal when Senate passed legislation, but the House said no. Both sides seem locked in, which leaves a lot of the Department of Homeland Security employees stuck in the middle. President Trump says he wants Republicans, he wants the Senate to get rid of the filibuster so Republicans can pass on this funding without Democrat support. Senate Majority Leader John Thune says they don't have the needed votes to terminate the filibuster, but that doesn't really matter. The president says part of being a leader is getting those votes. But as we continue, I'd like to let you listen in. The White House held a briefing today, updating on both the Department of Homeland Security's ongoing funding lapse, and they updated on the war with Iran. I'd like to let you listen in on some of the question and answer part of the briefing, where Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt answered some of reporters' questions, and then we'll continue on with the latest in Iran.
I have 2 questions, one on Iran and one on DHS funding. On Iran, the president has said that the administration is talking to a new and more reasonable regime. How confident are you that they are legitimate and have enough grip on power? Marco Rubio said earlier that he's not sure and it's not clear whether they will be in power. So are you also talking to other factions? As the president is trying to make a deal, how do you ensure that you're making a deal with the people who can actually implement it?
Well, that's part of the
ongoing process that's taking place and the ongoing negotiations. Of course, anything that they say to us privately will be tested, and we will ensure that they are being held accountable to their word. And if they are not, the president has laid out the military consequences that the Iranian regime will see if they don't hold true to the words that we are hearing privately behind the scenes. When the president says more reasonable, again, these folks are appearing more reasonable behind the scenes privately in these conversations than perhaps some of the previous leaders who are now no longer on planet Earth. Because they lied to the United States and they strung us along in negotiations, and that was unacceptable to the president, which is why many of the previous leaders were killed. So again, this is another historic opportunity for Iran to do the right thing, to rid themselves of their nuclear ambitions and to come to a deal with this president and the administration. Or again, they will see the grave consequences of the United States Armed Forces, which they are continuing to see every day throughout this operation.
On DHS, how long can the administration keep paying TSA without action from Congress? And not to be hyperbolic, but given the airports were really the pain point that was pushing both sides to talk to each other. I mean, do you see a way for DHS to reopen? Is it possible that this keeps going through the midterms?
Well, we certainly hope so. I mean, of course, the president just can't keep signing presidential memorandums and proclamations every time Congress fails to do its job and every time Democrats are holding our entire country hostage, picking and choosing which programs and agencies they want to fund just because they don't like this administration's policies. That's not how it's supposed to work. They voted 7 times against funding DHS over partisan and political reasons. And so, again, the president has stepped in to do the right thing at this moment in time. But the president is also encouraging Congress to come back to Washington to permanently fix this problem and to fund and reopen the Department of Homeland Security entirely.
Caroline. So you're listening in as Caroline Levitt answered questions from reporters just about an hour ago, speaking a little bit about the Department of Homeland Security's funding lapse and about the destruction in Iran. And again, keep in mind, some of you curious as to how TSA workers are getting their paychecks, even though the Department of Homeland Security is not fully funded. It is because President Trump signed an order to get emergency funding from the One Big Beautiful Bill to fund the paychecks for these TSA workers. It's the same thing he used last year during the government shutdown to fund military servicemen and women. So that is what is happening there. But let's talk about Iran, because you heard White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt touch on what is ongoing there, because the president has extended a deadline once again for Iran. The president, though, has continued to threaten widespread destruction of Iran's energy resources if a deal to end the war is not reached soon. Iran fired multiple waves of missiles at Israel today as Operation Epic Fury is in its 5th week, and there is still no end in sight. You can see there was one of those missiles just a little bit ago causing a fire at an oil refinery in Haifa in northern Israel. It followed weekend airstrikes by the United States and Israel on Iran's steel and nuclear facilities. President Trump now saying that if Iran does not make a deal soon, quote, the United States will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, end quote. Now, those talks supported by Pakistan are said to be ongoing between Iran and the United States. President Trump said progress was made over the weekend, but he's also sending more and more United States ground troops to the region to give leverage as he continues to negotiate. This gives the president a sizable ground force option to take Karg Island there in Iran, and that's Iran's main oil terminal. A growing number of experts have said a long-term U.S. ground commitment could backfire and turn into a quagmire like the Iraq War. So this is something we continue to monitor. President Trump says the Pentagon is preparing to hit 3,000 additional targets in Iran if a deal is not reached soon. So that is the latest there. I'd also like to let you know about something that Fox News is following, because it's interesting to see the effects of policy decisions. One thing that we're taking a look at amid the ongoing funding lapse for the Department of Homeland Security and the ongoing war in Iran is the effect it's now having on President President Trump's approval ratings. We also saw No Kings rallies happening over the weekend in major cities like here in Atlanta and across the nation. Similar scenes played out in Europe, where Americans abroad also marched in rallies. One thing that we're taking a look at through this poll is it's not just the president's critics who are angry over the war. The latest Fox News poll has found 64% of registered voters disapprove of how the president is handling Iran. That's up from 57% in January. And adding fuel to the discontent is the impact here at home, like rising grocery prices and oil prices that we have seen. Some 86% of voters, according to that poll, are extremely concerned about inflation and high prices. And some of you have asked about that and how the war in Iran is affecting the market. I can see by our big board, we're taking a look at the New York Stock Exchange that we are in the green right now. So that is good news. No doubt the market's responding to TSA workers getting their paychecks and the positivity that hopefully that's going to ease some of the lines we're seeing at these airports. But it is a concern, right? So as we take a look at this, some of the worst approval ratings for the president so far with this poll, his overall job rating stands at 41% approving and 59% disapproving. And this is a major shift from a year ago when some 51% of registered voters disapproved then. So this is something we continue to monitor, especially after it's not a full government shutdown like what happened last year, but this is partial and it is having an effect. So as we continue here, one more quick story to touch base with you guys on. Some of you asking about the latest with Jeffrey Epstein. This story is interesting with the Bank of America because the nation's largest banking system has agreed to a multi-million-dollar payout to the victims harmed by the late financier and convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. Bank of America says it's going to pay $72.5 million to survivors of Epstein's sex trafficking operations. The deal covers women sexually abused or trafficked by Epstein from June 30th, 2008 through July 6, 2019, such as Epstein's former partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Leon Black, the former CEO of Apollo Global Management. Now, the lawsuit alleged Bank of America held accounts by victims and associates like those I just mentioned. Bank of America says it stands by its prior statements that it did not facilitate Epstein and his associate sex trafficking schemes. The deal does not include any admission of liability by the bank, and it must be approved by the judge, this lawsuit settlement. So we'll continue to keep you updated as this story progresses. But you guys, it is a busy 2 o'clock, a lot of news to get to today. We're going to bring you closer to home coming up next. We're going to check in with meteorologist Jonathan Stacy for the latest, or excuse me, we have Alex Forbes today. So we're going to check in with Alex Forbes for the latest on your 2 o'clock weather. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Ariel Onstad. Thanks so much for being here at 2 o'clock. We've got a lot of stuff still to get to. It is a busy afternoon on your Monday. One of the big things that we want to track is what to expect as we approach Easter weekend and Passover. Alex Forbes is going to let us know where things stand as we look ahead towards the holiday week.
So a warm couple of days. That stretch continues into the new work week across north and central Georgia, with temperatures getting into the low to mid 70s this afternoon in most locations. The only exception being up across the North Georgia mountains, hanging out in the upper 60s. 72 in Atlanta for a high temperature today, 74 in Covington, 76 in Eatonton, 75 in Griffin, and 76 over in Noonan. All of that above the average high of 69. Now less than a week away from Easter. It's a week from yesterday, 6 days away, 10 days till the Masters starts. The reason why that's on this list is because that's typically our green light to go planting things, right? 23 days to Earth Day, 36 days to Cinco de Mayo, and 41 days until Mother's Day, getting into the middle part of May. Now, even though it's spring, we're beginning to take on what resembles somewhat of a summertime pattern, with a steady chance of showers and maybe even some storms each afternoon. That, of course, includes on Easter Sunday at about 40%. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment. But for the remainder of the afternoon, look for a sprinkle or two. Also, look for some breaks in the clouds. Once we get deeper into the day, be able to see a little more in the way of sunshine, temperatures getting into the 70s because of that. That southeasterly breeze continues into the night tonight and then into tomorrow. Starting the day off maybe a little cooler than today in a handful of spots. We'll say upper 50s and low 60s, but then we are back into the 80s. So running about 8 to 10 degrees warmer than today, with still a scattered shower risk. But that rain chance really begins to ramp up by the time we get to Wednesday, starting off in the mid 60s, up to a 40% chance of showers and storms. Notice I said storms there. Right, a couple rumbles of thunder will be possible as we get into the mid 80s. All right, the pollen's not as high as it has been, but still is up there. 728 was the pollen count this morning. Notice there's more words down here. What we're doing is beginning to pick up a lot more weed pollen. So if you're maybe been okay the past couple of weeks, now you're starting to feel the allergies. That's likely due to the weeds out there, but of course that tree pollen continues, just not at quite the level as it was last week. So there are your high temperatures through the day today. We'll say overcast and scattered drizzle into the night tonight, getting down into the 60s and 50s once again. I've got 61 for Atlanta, 57 over in Athens and in Milledgeville. In fact, it's a popular number on the map, right? Canton, Gainesville, Peachtree City, LaGrange, running a little warmer up there in Dalton at 59 through the overnight hours. So you take all of that into consideration, and it makes sense that, yeah, we had an extremely high pollen count last week. Well, today is our first day in just the high range since Saturday the 21st. I would expect, because of that cloud cover and those scattered showers, we'll see another high day tomorrow. And I also suspect that this is probably the worst of it. All right. So as we work our way into April, we will continue to see high numbers, but maybe not necessarily 7 days in a row of extremely high pollen counts. Speaking of which, into April, getting to Easter, 76 is our forecast high temperature there. We do have a 40% chance of storms later in the evening. I think that's going to come, say, after the 2 o'clock hour. Of course, it's Monday. We're talking about next Sunday. So the timing's still a little fuzzy, but that's the way I see it, at least at this moment. We'll take that opportunity to pick up some rainfall, because even though the first part of March we saw a decent amount, last week and a half, almost 2 weeks, has been relatively dry. Only 4.03 inches of rain so far this month. That puts us down more than a third on average, and that is on top of a below average finish to 2025 and a below average start to 2026 for January, February, and now March. The result is the drought monitor. You see the extreme conditions continuing out near Lake Hartwell. That swoops through Athens, up through Gainesville, and now across the mountains and into metro Atlanta. We still have severe drought conditions. They're worth noting down there in Upson County. They've been in extreme drought for quite a while. And here's your Fox 5 Storm Team 7-day forecast. So warmer here in the days to come. 83, 85, 84 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I do think Friday's probably going to be our best chance of rain. That's going to be at 60%. Front's going to try to approach, but it's not going to clear us out. We will be holding on to that shower and storm chance through the weekend, including on Easter Sunday.
Update letting us know what to expect as we look ahead to the end of the week. So it is just Monday and we are getting started, but no doubt a lot of you are looking ahead to your plans this weekend. So thank you, Alex. As we continue, I want to let you know about a heroic effort from police to rescue a missing child with autism spectrum disorder. So let's get into it because we have body cam video of that arrest. Police in Gwinnett County saved this 8-year-old child. This child was rescued from a body of water after running away from home last week. And according to the Gwinnett County Police Department, officers responded on March 24th to the report of a missing child who was nonverbal. Authorities say the child had left the home, prompting an urgent search because of the child's known attraction to water and the presence of a nearby body of water. Officers quickly spread out across the area with help of community members who joined the search. Master Police Officer Serrano posted his patrol vehicle along the bridge on Steve Reynolds Boulevard to monitor the water below while others searched the wooded areas. A short time later, officers heard the child crying, clinging to a branch in the water. So that officer and a civilian got into the water and were able to rescue this baby. The child was reunited with family members and is going to be okay. Did not suffer any serious injuries, but obviously this could have been a lot worse. So great quick thinking from Gwinnett County Police and community members who jumped into action to save this 8-year-old. I also want to let you know about an update to a story out of Brookhaven because we told you about 3 men who were shot and killed and how Brookhaven police were encouraging people to come forward. And they also said they understood people in that community might have a distrust of police and may not want to talk about what happened. So let's get into why. Because 3 men have now been arrested in connection with a gang-related shooting that left 2 people dead. So earlier I actually said 3. It was 2 people dead at a Brookhaven apartment complex. So want to be clear there. But Brookhaven police have arrested Alexander Galvez Hernandez and Kenner de Villa Meza and Jaciel Ozuna Valente following a deadly encounter on March 22nd. Ultimately, these 3 men are going to face murder and gang-related charges after a deadly shootout at a Brookhaven apartment complex last week. The 2 victims were aged 17 and 20 years old. They died after rival groups reportedly exchanged that gunfire on Northcliffe Valley Way, according to police. Brookhaven police were able to figure out the attack was a deliberate act facilitated by a rival gang, ultimately leading to the arrests of those 3 men, like I mentioned. So we'll keep you updated. If you have any further information, give police a call. But ultimately, one thing we're still having questions over, would like to know, is police haven't released the names of the 2 victims. So that's something we're working to get. And it's also unclear what specific event led to this rival gang shootout and whether or not anyone else was involved. So police have not specified if they're still seeking additional suspects. We'll keep you updated if they let us know. As we continue here at 2 o'clock, we're looking ahead to a story with our Chris Rosenthal. He's going to take us out to a fair housing exhibit. And if some of you are wondering, what is that? What does that do? It takes a look at how policies shape our neighborhoods. And hey, maybe you live in a neighborhood and you're not sure why it looks the way that it does. Where neighborhoods are, how they look, can shape how people have access to opportunities. So we're going to uncover and discuss a little bit about that with this exhibit coming up next. Welcome back in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for being here at 2 o'clock. Question for you. Have you ever wondered how housing history could help build a stronger, more vibrant community? And do you wonder how housing plays into all of that? Our Chris Rosenthal joins us live from an exhibit trying to explore just that. So, Chris, it's great to see you. It's really interesting that there's a tour component to all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the Keys to Equity Fair Housing exhibit. I've been getting a little bit of a tour here throughout the day with the curator, Amy McCoy. I'll introduce you here in a second. But yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating. It's kind of a history lesson here, starting with, you know, the 1800s, going all the way up to now, and just seeing how policies and laws and acts that have been enacted really shaped real estate, it shaped our communities, shaped the roads, shaped the neighborhoods that we live in. You can see some of the effects of this even, you know, here in the metro Atlanta area. And I think this exhibit kind of helps tie a lot of that together through, you know, there's about 50 or so panels here that are really interesting and interactive way to walk around here at this free exhibit here in Douglasville. This is, by the way, at the Hunter Memorial Park here in Douglasville. Started last week, goes till April 25th. So, but I'm joined by April McCoy. She is the curator of this exhibit here and real estate expert. And just, you know, first of all, why do this exhibit? What's the message here?
So I've been in real estate over 22 years, and being a practitioner in the industry, I get to see what happens to people when they're trying to buy and sell. I see the impacts of just sometimes people judging a book by its color, and I, being a practitioner, can recognize that there are certain violations happening with fair housing. And as we see how policies are being written today, I see them as a constant reminder of laws that have been not enforced, and so it sets a new behavior. And so I figured, what's the best way I can get and teach people how to advocate for themselves is showing them how we can connect all the dots, so that we're not making the systemic mistakes of the past. Again, we're not repeating those. And so I really wanted to showcase that, and so. Yeah, 50 different panels.
Yeah, so I mean, and Amy, this is, you know, this is really very comprehensive sense of history here. I mean, we can't get to all of them, unfortunately, in the next few minutes, but we can highlight a few. I mean, we've heard the term redlining. I mean, yes. Talk to me about this one here.
So redlining was a big thing, and just as you can see from this panel, it kind of started from the Great Depression, and it talked about how when we were going to start allowing homes to be purchased, who are we giving those type of loans to? And so the Homeowners Loan Corporation decided to create what we have as coding the map, making green the best, blue still desirable, yellow definitely declining, and then red. That is where the term redlining comes from, because those were considered the hazardous areas. And unfortunately, most minorities were then pushed to that area. So when you look at the type of resources that were accessible during that time, they were prohibited. That came from not just from lending institutions, from insurance, things of those sorts. And that's major, because even though the federal government helped in not necessarily causing the segregation, they institutionalized it, which kind of led into how the mortgage underwriting the mortgage underlining policies kind of came into place, and then people had to kind of create ways of how they're able to maneuver around the country. So that's why we also introduced the Green Book. But even with that, you had redlining that came in even with the type of public housing. Redlining in a sense of, because when we think about how our schools are funded, where we worked so hard to make sure that schools were integrated, we still have that challenge today of segregation, because again, if we're not being intentional to making inclusive communities, we're repeating the past of segregation. So it's very key to making sure we tie those in together.
And it's interesting, you know, go through, you know, we start back to the 1830s, I mean, all the way to 1968 here. I mean,
1968, yes, where the Fair Housing Act was finally passed. Unfortunately, at the demise of such a powerful civil rights leader of Dr. Martin Luther King, and it's unfortunate that talking about housing equity and equality unfortunately caused his demise. But that's just how important, because housing is tied to your voting.
Yeah.
So,
and you know, one of the cool things about this exhibit, guys, is, you know, it's you also tie it. All these panels have kind of a tie to Georgia and to Atlanta. So you know,
absolutely.
even though we talk about a lot of these federal laws, things presidents may have done, you know, these things have an effect here back on our home, huh?
Yeah, because it has changed. Everything has evolved in terms of, you know, we're not doing so much of underwriting manually, right, as much as maybe now we're using data that we can find online. But even the algorithms have a level of bias. Hi, thank you for coming. We also are talking about how we've had to expand protections. But I also want to make sure that the public understands that even today, here it is in 2026, fair housing still needs to be enforced. We still need to make sure that we're strengthening our education about it, because just in the last year, you had policies that we're now eliminating. This is not a political exhibit. This is about making sure people are informed about the laws that are on the books and how we're enforcing them. So if we're eliminating furthering fair housing, if we're eliminating how disparate impact is brought within a community, if we're eliminating Dodd-Frank, these are those things that will impact how the next generation is able to, one, acquire a home, to be able to finance that home if they need to be able to get assistance to maintain that house. We need to make sure that it is equitable and it is very inclusive.
Amy, thank you for joining us. It really is kind of a through line here between, you know, just a walk through history, again, of fair housing laws and practices, and very informational. Again, if you want to come visit this, it is open from 2 to 6, Monday through Friday, free here in Douglasville at the Hunter Memorial Park, and also open in the mornings for students, for school groups and otherwise, and Monday through Friday, but also April 11th, which is a Saturday, will also be open. You can come see it then. Again, completely free.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for introducing us to this. I appreciated the history lesson and her educating us on where we come from and why things might look how they are. You know, it's always interesting to hear equity versus equality in this situation. I've heard it explained, Chris, equality is often like giving everyone the same resources regardless of where you start, but equity is giving people resources that takes into account where they come from. So good to understand this and try to get an understanding of the history that shapes where we currently are. So Chris Rosenthal, thank you for that free exhibit tour. As we continue here at 2 o'clock, speaking of housing, let's talk about a Harvard lecture given by Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell today, because he spoke at Harvard University and he participated in a moderated discussion at the Principles of Economic class at Harvard. He says the Federal Reserve is committed to a wait-and-see approach. The goal is ultimately to bring inflation back to 2%. Wow, wouldn't that be nice? But he says the Federal Reserve is working to see how the Iran war, tariff inflation, and other factors are ultimately going to affect the economy first. Take a listen to what he had to say.
We've been coming down close to 2% post-pandemic, but we've never actually, you know, gotten right and stayed at 2%. So it's been a while. And we're very mindful of that fact. Inflation expectations do appear to be well anchored beyond the short term, but nonetheless, it's something as we will eventually maybe face the question of what to do here. We're not really facing it yet because we don't know what the economic effects will be. The FOMC is and will continue to be committed to getting inflation back to 2% on a sustained basis. That's the place to start. A situation like the present situation where, you know, there's sort of downside risk to the labor market, which suggests keep rates low, but there's upside risk to inflation, which suggests maybe don't keep rates low. You've got tension between the two objectives. And I think to try to expect unanimity at a time like that, where it's really quite historically challenging, it would almost be misleading to be really confident in which way that should go. And we've had to face a much smaller source of inflation, which is the tariff inflation is visible, and we think it's really just a one-time price increase. That's been our thinking since the beginning. Right now, we think it's adding somewhere between 0.5 and a full percentage point to inflation. But that's a much smaller thing than we saw during the pandemic inflation. And, you know, and of course now we're facing events in the Middle East which will certainly affect gas prices, and we feel like our policy is in a good place for us to wait and see how that turns out.
So that was the Federal Reserve Chair speaking at Harvard University, and we were kind of able to get some of his thoughts on strategy as it relates to the Federal Reserve, because there's been a lot of pushback between the Trump administration and the Federal Reserve over the Federal Reserve choosing not to lower interest rates. This discussion does mark one of Jerome Powell's final public appearances before his term ends in May. So we'll keep you updated when his successor is officially named and put into place. But in the meantime here, coming up next, we're going to get a look at some other stories we're following here in the Fox 5 newsroom. Have you heard about the Kit Kat heist? This is crazy because I thought that all these tons of Kit Kats that were stolen was a joke, but turns out no. Tons of Kit Kats, literal tons, were stolen in Europe. We're going to talk about that, and we're also going to talk about some astronauts headed around the moon coming up. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for being here. I want to tell you about something I learned just a little bit ago, and that is the Supreme Court is set to take up the birthright citizenship case as the Trump administration is challenging a lower court's ruling. The high court's going to hear arguments Wednesday over the constitutionality of President Trump's order on birthright citizenship. He signed that his first day in office, if you remember, and that order basically declared that children born to parents who are in the United States illegally or temporarily are not United States citizens. The justices will hear the president's appeal of a lower court ruling that struck down the citizenship restrictions, saying it likely violates the 14th Amendment. So we'll keep you updated as that progresses. But back to that Kit Kat heist I told you about just a little bit ago, because this is pretty wild. 12 tons of massive shipment of Kit Kats, Nestle's Kit Kat bars, were brazenly stolen in a pre-Easter truck heist in Europe. It was a sweet escape because this transit was happening across Europe when the Kit Kats were stolen. Nestle owns Kit Kat and tells Fox News that the truck was transporting more than 413,000 units of its new chocolate range. It's shaped like a Formula One car, and then it went missing after leaving a factory in central Italy last week. Those Kit Kats were set to be distributed throughout Europe before arriving in Poland. Kit Kat says they're working closely with local authorities and believe the missing items could enter unofficial sales channels. If that happens, all products can be traced using their unique batch codes. So if a customer or retailer finds a match, they'll be given instructions on how to alert the company. So, you know, sometimes you might find like stolen gems, or you always wonder if you're going to find yourself in the middle of something crazy in that regard. No, this one is candy bars. In a statement, a Kit Kat person says, quote, "We've always encouraged people to have a break with Kit Kat, but it seems thieves have taken the message too literally and made a break with more than 12 tons of our chocolate. While we appreciate the criminals' exceptional taste, the fact remains that cargo theft is an escalating issue for businesses of all sizes. With more sophisticated schemes becoming deployed on a regular basis, we've chosen to go public with our own experience in the hope it raises awareness of an increasingly common criminal trend." Nestle says this incident is only a portion of their supplies and shouldn't lead to a shortage ahead of Easter. But one question I have is, are we going to see more Formula One shaped Kit Kats? No doubt those are going to be very popular given the interest in Formula One exploding. So we're going to see how this progresses, but you should be able to get regular Kit Kats, no problem. As we continue here at 2 o'clock, let's quickly take a look at what is to come with the Artemis mission that is set for launch on Wednesday. This is really exciting, you guys, because with this, astronauts are expected to become the first space explorers to circle the moon in more than half a century. Arriving at their launch site in Florida, the crew of Artemis 2 are now at the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, and fuel leaks and other rocket issues actually delayed the launch for 2 months, but it seems that all systems may be a go for Wednesday. At least that's what NASA is telling us. The rocket will send the crew on humanity's first moonshot mission since Apollo 17 in 1972. And with this one, they're actually going to go around the moon and circling it before they come back. Attempts towards eventually establishing a permanent base on a lunar surface. So we're going to continue to keep you updated on that. But I am looking at our time, and we've got Tom Haynes here ready to tell us what is upcoming for 3. Tom, really incredible to think another moon
I think it's so cool that we're talking about, you know, the moon right now.
Yeah.
This happened, what, back in the 1960s we landed on the moon, and here we go again, Ariel. And the Kit Kat story, I also thought was a joke on social media this morning.
It wasn't.
The whole, you know, McDonald's hamburger. You never know what's going to hit TikTok and Instagram and X these days.
Okay, so what do we have at 3?
Coming up at 3, Ariel, we're going to check back in with the airport, those long wait times. TSA workers finally getting paid. We're going to talk about that. That tragedy in Texas with the school shooting. We have late-breaking details on that coming up at 3 o'clock. And a vote in the Georgia State Legislature as it relates to clergy members and criminal standards. This is an interesting one, and our Deidre Dukes is going to be joining us live here at the top of the hour to talk about that.
Awesome. Tom, looking forward to hearing that conversation. You guys, I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks for being here, too. More to come at 3.
Good afternoon. Happy Monday. Welcome to the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. So happy you're with us this afternoon for the 3 o'clock hour. I'm Tom Haynes, your host, going to bring you through all the stories that are making news today and are relevant to you. Want to first bring you out to Texas, where we are on top of breaking news, a story that's been developing really for the past few hours, and that is tragedy striking a Texas community today. Authorities say that a 15-year-old student is dead and a teacher is hospitalized after a shooting at Hill Country College Prep in Bulverde. The Como County Sheriff's Office confirms the student died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound there on the scene, but as you can imagine, caused some very, very tense moments among both the student body and parents whose children go to this school. Again, this happening at Hill Country College Prep in Bulverde, Texas, in Como County. The campus remains on lockdown as far as we know, as investigators continue to search for a motive and the details as to what might have led up to all of this. But while that student died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, there is, at the same time, ironically, a huge sigh of relief there that this didn't turn into something much, much worse. We'll stay on top of that situation for you and bring you details as we get it this afternoon. Now to the Georgia State Legislature, where lawmakers have unanimously voted to hold clergy members to the same criminal standards as teachers and coaches. The bill now heading to the governor's desk and closes a legal loophole to protect survivors. Let's get out to Deidre Dukes there on the grounds of the state capitol with more on what all this bill entails. Deidre?
And this was clearly, as you said off the top there, Tom, that both members of the House and Senate could unanimously get behind this bill passing unanimously in both the House and Senate, now headed to the governor's desk for his signature. This bill was one that truly touched a lot of people because they heard some very emotional testimony from victims, sexual abuse victims who were victimized and testified as to that abuse, victimized at the hands of clergy, victimized at the hands of spiritual leaders, people who they trusted and who in turn abused that trust, they told lawmakers. Now, under current state law, sexual misconduct charges often require that the perpetrator be a teacher, a coach, or a similar authority figure. Now, the Georgia Clergy Sexual Abuse Bill eliminates this loophole, reclassifying religious leaders as protected figures of trust, and that way ensuring that they face the same criminal standards as any other professional in charge of minors or vulnerable adults. Now, the bill passed by unanimous vote, as I said, in both the House and Senate after lawmakers did hear that emotional testimony. And we talked to one of those survivors who lobbied for the legislation about the bill's recent passage.
For me and for other survivors that are in the state of Georgia, I hope it provides some hope for some accountability coming forward. By no means is this an easy thing. For all of us that are here, our body's experiencing a lot while we're here, but we're doing it because we care about the future. And so grateful that there was a unanimous vote, that it shows that the whole legislative from the Senate to the House is on board with not just politics and Democrat, Republican stuff, but what actually matters in this case is like to hold people accountable no matter what party you are. It's not about a party. It's about holding people accountable and standing up for victims.
And lawmakers apparently agreeing with what that victim did say during our interview with her. Now, if this bill is signed into law, Tom, Georgia would join a number of states across the country, a growing number who have signed similar legislation into law, holding clergy responsible for prosecution when they do commit this crime.
It's important legislation, and you can understand why it means so much to survivors who had to endure something so horrific, that these clergy members, ones implicated in criminal instances like this, are held to a different account. And it's no wonder, Deidre, that this bill passed with unanimous support there at the state legislature. Deidre, thanks so much. I want to take you live now to Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, where things are looking up on this Monday after reporting for days and days, seemingly weeks, about long lines at the airport and TSA workers not getting paid, many of them having to walk off the job literally for survival because the paychecks just weren't coming in. They had families to feed. They had lives to live there as our shot kind of glitches at the airport. But now things seem to be improving as TSA wait times are reducing, we understand. Remember, they were upwards of over 90 minutes. Well, now they're back online at Hartsfield-Jackson after a days-long outage amid record-breaking lines. Well, wait times have eased today. Airport officials are still urging passengers to arrive at least 4 hours early due to ongoing staffing unpredictability. So while the lines seem to be moving, they're saying just err on the safe side and get here early because you don't want to jeopardize missing your flight and ruining your entire vacation or wherever it is you're going on a business trip or whatever. Relief on the way, we understand today, for TSA agents. President Trump signing that executive order to get those agents back on the payroll as back pay is expected to hit bank accounts starting at a minimum today and into tomorrow following that executive order. But it's going to be interesting to see how many TSA agents actually left the job, in other words, quit to go do something else, and how long it will take to restaff the TSA to get it back up to partial government shutdown levels. That is a story we're certainly going to be watching here as the days and weeks start to unfold. Some scary moments for passengers on board a Frontier Airlines plane landing at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. The airline says that a passenger made verbal bomb threats, we understand, on board the flight yesterday afternoon. The alleged threat was made as the flight was traveling from Columbus, Ohio, and then once it reached Hartsfield-Jackson, it was taxiing to the gate. The pilot took the Airbus A320 to a remote part of the airport where it was surrounded by law enforcement agents, we understand. Frontier calls the threat non-credible, while passengers describe what happened.
The flight attendant told him to sit back down. He wasn't having any part of it. Everything seemed to be fine. And, but I think the other stewardess had already made the phone call at that point. And I think once you, make that phone call to Atlanta PD, I don't think you can walk it back.
So some scary moments there. You see video from on board that plane. And again, the captain having to park it at a remote part of the airport just out of an abundance of caution. This all happening yesterday. Obviously, the situation has since resolved, and those passengers have been sent on their way. Georgians one step closer to reclaiming billions of dollars in unclaimed money. Senate Bill 403 passed both chambers unanimously, creating an exact match system to automatically send checks for certain amounts. It also cuts out red tape for heirs to claim funds under $7,500 without a probate order. The bill now heads back to the Senate for final approval. Atlanta police are searching for 3 suspects after gunfire shattered the window of a school bus. This happening on Campbellton Road last week. Investigators say that the trio was seen with a 22-year-old man moments before he was shot in that same incident. 2 children on the bus were struck by broken glass, but luckily only suffered minor scratches. Police are asking anybody with information to call Crime Stoppers 404-577-TIPS. As we talked about, the DHS is starting to fund many of the TSA workers who were off the job for so long. Back pay is going to hit bank accounts very shortly here after the 6-week standoff, while security lines already starting to kind of free up at the airport. House and Senate leaders remain deadlocked under funding for ICE and Border Patrol, leaving the rest of the Department of Homeland Security in limbo. This as its new secretary was just sworn in. The president urging Senate Republicans to eliminate the filibuster to break the stalemate, but leadership says they currently lack the votes to make that change. There was a press briefing at the White House today where the press secretary discussed all this. In addition to immigration policies, let's listen to what part of what Caroline Leavitt had to say.
Democrats on Capitol Hill have failed to do the same here at home by keeping the Department of Homeland Security unfunded. Over the past 6 weeks, Democrats in Congress have pushed our air travel system to its breaking point and inflicted massive pain on Americans with their reckless political games. 500 TSA officers quit their jobs. Thousands more were calling out sick at record rates due to the lack of pay. This resulted in security wait times exceeding 3 hours at major airports across the country, creating nightmares for millions of Americans. Overall morale among TSA staff plummeted as well, all of this creating an unacceptable heightened security risk. Because of the Democrats' unwillingness to do their basic job of funding DHS, President Trump determined that these circumstances constituted an emergency, compromising American security. That's why last week he accordingly signed a presidential memorandum directing the Secretary of Homeland Security to work with the Director of the Office of Management and Budget here at the White House to use those funds with a reasonable and logical nexus to TSA operations to provide TSA employees with the compensation and benefits that would have accrued to them but for the Democrat-led DHS shutdown. This bold and necessary action by President Trump will ensure our TSA workers receive their hard-earned paychecks. It should not have come to this point, but President Trump will always do what's right by the American people, and he found a way to do that, to get TSA paid. Ensuring that these federal workers who perform critical public safety responsibilities can feed their families, pay their rent, and show up to work is something the president was honored to do. But this moment should be an eye-opening one for the American people. Let's be clear about what is happening. Democrat members of Congress are more than happy to put your safety at risk because they oppose the president's and his administration's efforts to enforce our nation's immigration law. Democrats refuse to fund ICE because they want millions and millions of illegal aliens to pour into the country just like they were under the Biden administration. They want murderers and rapists and thugs to remain in your communities rather than be removed by ICE and Border Patrol agents. The Democrats created this mess. They are the reason for long lines at airports and tens of thousands of employees going without pay. Once again, President Trump is cleaning up their mess because he cares more about the American people than destructive, petty, partisan politics.
All right, that's that's the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt talking about the Department of Homeland Security partial shutdown, addressing the fact that the president signed that executive order, which begins to pay TSA agents once again and get people and traffic flowing through airports once again, pre-partial shutdown levels. Now, the press secretary took some questions after her statement. I want to have you listen to part of what she had to say there.
I have two questions, one on Iran and one on DHS funding. On Iran, the president has said that the administration is talking to a new and more reasonable regime. How confident are you that they are legitimate and have enough grip on power? Marco Rubio said earlier that he's not sure and it's not clear whether they will be in power. So are you also talking to other factions? As the president is trying to make a deal, how do you ensure that you're making a deal with the people who can actually implement it?
Well, that's part of the ongoing process that's taking place and the ongoing negotiations. Of course, anything that they say to us privately will be tested, and we will ensure that they are being held accountable to their word. And if they are not, the president has laid out the military consequences that the Iranian regime will see if they don't hold true to the words that we are hearing privately behind the scenes. When the president says more reasonable, again, these folks are appearing more reasonable behind the scenes privately in these conversations than perhaps some of the previous leaders who are now no longer on planet Earth. Because they lied to the United States and they strung us along in negotiations, and that was unacceptable to the president, which is why many of the previous leaders were killed. So again, this is another historic opportunity for Iran to do the right thing, to rid themselves of their nuclear ambitions and to come to a deal with this president and the administration. Or again, they will see the grave consequences of the United States Armed Forces, which they are continuing to see every day throughout this operation.
On DHS, how long can the administration keep paying TSA without action from Congress? And not to be hyperbolic, but given the airports were really the pain point that was pushing both sides to talk to each other. I mean, do you see a way for DHS to reopen? Is it possible this keeps going through the midterms?
Well, we certainly hope so. I mean, of course, the president just can't keep signing presidential memorandums and proclamations every time Congress fails to do its job and every time Democrats are holding our entire country hostage, picking and choosing which programs and agencies they want to fund just because they don't like this administration's policies. That's not how it's supposed to work. They voted 7 times against funding DHS over partisan and political reasons. And so, again, the president has stepped in to do the right thing at this moment in time. But the president is also encouraging Congress to come back to Washington to permanently fix this problem and to fund and reopen the Department of Homeland Security entirely.
Caroline.
Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions, one on TSA, one on Iran. On TSA, for ordinary Americans watching the briefing, how long until everything goes back to normal at airports after the president's action? And then on Iran, on the time frame, President Trump initially said about 4 weeks. Secretary of State Rubio on Friday reportedly said it might be another 2 to 4. Is 2 to 4 the current ballpark that the administration is thinking?
With respect to the timeline, again, the president, commander-in-chief, the Pentagon has always stated 4 to 6 weeks estimated timeline for Operation Epic Fury. We're on day 30 today. So again, you do the math on how much longer the Pentagon needs to fully achieve the objectives of Operation Epic Fury, which I will reiterate: destroy the Iranian Navy, destroy their ballistic missiles, dismantle their missile and drone production infrastructure, significantly weaken their proxies throughout the course of this operation, and then, of course, preventing Iran from ever obtaining a nuclear weapon. To your first question, Stephen, about TSA and airports, nothing will be truly normal again until Democrats do the right thing to fund this agency fully. Again, the president has stepped in the meantime to do what's right to end this crisis that we've had at air travel and at airports across the country in the meantime. But again, Congress needs to come back. Democrats need to fund the Department of Homeland Security so we can formally and fully get these great employees paid long into the future.
Caroline.
Jonathan.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. 2 questions regarding the financial costs of the war.
Hi, Caroline Levitt answering reporters' questions about all things from transportation security to the war in Iran. Interesting side note there that she mentioned administration officials, at least some of them said that the conflict in Iran could last anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, and Levitt noting that we're on day 30 exactly here. So, how the rest of the conflict plays out. The president saying that Iran is coming to the negotiating table. Officials in Iran dispute that, but we don't know what's happening back channel there. The president did issue a stark new ultimatum to Tehran as Operation Epic Fury enters its 5th week now. In a social media post today, the president threatened to completely obliterate Iran's oil wells and power plants if a ceasefire deal is not reached. It comes as Iran launched new missile strikes targeting Israeli refineries, while the Pentagon reportedly prepares to strike 3,000 additional targets across Iran. This is we're getting news from Spain, a country that has not been too hospitable or friendly toward this administration, that it is blocking airspace to military flights for the United States as it relates to Iran. This is a growing standoff between the president and Spain. Spain is a NATO ally, but has escalated the situation after blocking U.S. military aircraft involved in the conflict from using its airspace. That news just into the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. Meantime, talks are still going on in Pakistan, but the president says he is already sending more troops to the region. All of this, the TSA situation, the war in Iran, high gas prices, inflation, affecting the president's approval ratings. They're hitting record lows as the nation grapples with a record-breaking government shutdown, as I mentioned, and the war. A new Fox News poll shows 59% of voters now disapprove of the president's job, with surging inflation, airport chaos, and we're going into spring and summertime when demand for gasoline goes higher. Over the weekend, massive No Kings rallies broke out on both coasts as protesters condemned the administration's policies. With DHS funding still in limbo, the shutdown has officially become the longest in U.S. history. Bank of America agreeing to pay more than $72 million to survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking operation. This news crossing today. The settlement covering women abused between 2008 and 2019, following allegations the bank held accounts for Epstein associates like Ghislaine Maxwell. Bank of America denies facilitating any crimes and says the deal is not an admission of liability. The settlement still requires approval from a judge. Coming up here on this busy Monday afternoon of news here on Fox Local, you might have noticed outside a bit of a cloudy day. I want to take a live look out at Truist Park right now to tell you what I'm talking about here. That's been the situation pretty much all day, that deck of clouds hanging over North Georgia. It is Monday, so we're interested in how the rest of the work week is going to pan out weather-wise. It is a little bit warmer out there, which is nice. Meteorologist Alex Forbes will join us here in just a second as we continue. Hey everybody, welcome back to the 3 p.m. streaming hour on Fox Local. I'm your host, Tom Haynes, here live with you in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. So happy you're with us today to get you up to date on all the news and information that's happening, not only here in our neck of the woods, but here in the United States and around the world. Speaking of our neck of the woods, want to talk about the weather, kicking off the work week on kind of a gloomy note outside. It's cloudy outside, and we haven't seen the sunshine in a little bit. Let's check in with meteorologist Alex Forbes to find out how the rest of this work week is going to pan out for us. Alex?
So a warm couple of days. That stretch continues into the new work week across north and central Georgia, with temperatures getting into the low to mid 70s this afternoon in most locations. The only exception being up across the North Georgia mountains, hanging out in the upper 60s. 72 in Atlanta for our high temperature today, 74 in Covington, 76 in Eatonton, 75 in Griffin, and 76 over in Noonan. All of that above the average high of 69. Now less than a week away from Easter. It's a week from yesterday, 6 days away, 10 days till the Masters starts. The reason why that's on this list is because that's typically our green light to go planting things, right? 23 days to Earth Day, 36 days to Cinco de Mayo, and 41 days until Mother's Day, getting into the middle part of May. Now, even though it's spring, we're beginning to take on what resembles somewhat of a summertime pattern, with a steady chance of showers and maybe even some storms each afternoon. That, of course, includes on Easter Sunday at about 40%. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment. But for the remainder of the afternoon, look for a sprinkle or two. Also, look for some breaks in the clouds. Once we get deeper into the day, and be able to see a little more in the way of sunshine, temperatures getting into the 70s because of that. That southeasterly breeze continues into the night tonight and then into tomorrow. Starting the day off maybe a little cooler than today in a handful of spots. We'll say upper 50s and low 60s, but then we are back into the 80s. So running about 8 to 10 degrees warmer than today with still a scattered shower risk. But that rain chance really begins to ramp up by the time we get to Wednesday, starting off in the mid 60s up to a 40% chance of showers and storms. Notice I said storms there. Right? A couple rumbles of thunder will be possible as we get into the mid 80s. All right, the pollen's not as high as it has been, but still is up there. 728 was the pollen count this morning. Notice there's more words down here. What we're doing is beginning to pick up a lot more weed pollen. So if you're maybe been okay the past couple of weeks, now you're starting to feel the allergies. That's likely due to the weeds out there, but of course that tree pollen continues, just not at quite the level as it was last week. So there are your high temperatures through the day today. We'll say overcast and scattered drizzle into the night tonight, getting down into the 60s and 50s once again. I've got 61 for Atlanta, 57 over in Athens and in Milledgeville. In fact, it's a popular number on the map, right? Canton, Gainesville, Peachtree City, LaGrange, running a little warmer up there in Dalton at 59 through the overnight hours. So you take all of that into consideration, and it makes sense that yeah, we had an extremely high pollen count last week. Well, today is our first day in just the high range since Saturday the 21st. I would expect, because of that cloud cover and those scattered showers, we'll see another high day tomorrow. And I also suspect that this is probably the worst of it. All right. So as we work our way into April, we will continue to see high numbers, but maybe not necessarily 7 days in a row of extremely high pollen counts. Speaking of which, into April, getting to Easter, 76 is our forecast high temperature there. We do have a 40% chance of storms later in the evening. I think that's going to come, say, after the 2 o'clock hour. Of course, it's Monday. We're talking about next Sunday. So the timing's still a little fuzzy, but that's the way I see it, at least at this moment. We'll take that opportunity to pick up some rainfall because even though the first part of March we saw a decent amount, last week and a half, almost 2 weeks, has been relatively dry. Only 4.03 inches of rain so far this month. That puts us down more than a third on average. And that is on top of a below average finish to 2025 and a below average start to 2026 for January, February, and now March. The result is the drought monitor. You see the extreme conditions continuing out near Lake Hartwell. That swoops through Athens, up through Gainesville, and now across the mountains and into metro Atlanta. We still have severe drought conditions. They're worth noting down there in Upson County. They've been in extreme drought for quite a while. And here's your Fox 5 Storm Team 7-day forecast. So warmer here in the days to come. 83, 85, 84 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I do think Friday's probably going to be our best chance of rain. That's going to be at 60%. Front's going to try to approach, but it's not going to clear us out. We will be holding on to that shower and storm chance through the weekend, including on Easter Sunday.
All right, Alex, thanks. We are on top of breaking news. Skyfox 5 is live over the scene in Gwinnett County of a situation playing out there where deputies responded to a call regarding an individual, we understand, attempting apparently to enter multiple homes within a neighborhood. So Gwinnett County Police dispatched right away to this area. This is an active scene, which is why our helicopter is above it. The individual, according to police, observed holding a firearm, but that did not discharge. Deputies remain there on the scene. Investigation still going on. Is this person in custody? We don't know that quite yet. Our chopper just arrived within the past couple of seconds, and that's why we wanted to turn it around right away to bring it to you to tell you what's going on. As you can see, police officials there in Gwinnett County working to find out exactly what happened. The crime scene tape looks like it's up, indicating something's going on. Again, reports of an individual attempting to enter multiple homes within that neighborhood, according to police, observe holding a firearm, which, according to authorities, did not discharge. Now, the chopper is going to remain over the scene. Our assignment desk is working to gather more information, and as soon as we hear something, we will bring it to you. I want to talk about a story about early voting, which is underway in North Georgia right now, in the northwest part of the state, to fill the vacant seat of former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is a story we've been talking about for quite some time. Republican Clay Fuller, Democrat Sean Harris squared off in the runoff after emerging from a field of 20 candidates. Harris led the first round with 37% of the vote, while the Trump-backed Fuller followed closely with 35%. But now that all the other candidates are out of the running here, it's going to be between these two guys. The winner will serve the remainder of the term through January. Election Day set for April the 7th, and you can be sure we will be covering it. It is a day decades in the making in our area as the city of Atlanta celebrates the unveiling of its first memorial dedicated to the Vietnam War. And take a look at the turnout there. The monument in Piedmont Park enshrines the names of 240 soldiers from Atlanta and Fulton County who never made it home. Veterans and city leaders gathered near 14th Street on Sunday to honor those sacrifices, featuring pillars reaching toward the sky to uplift the memory of the fallen. The project was funded by the city's Park Improvement Fund and will stay there to honor the fallen of the Vietnam War. As we continue, we're going to take you to Douglasville, opening a brand new interactive exhibit designed to unlock the history of fair housing in Atlanta, something we don't think deeply about sometimes, the roots of it, how it has evolved. But this exhibit seeks to answer a lot of those questions when we come back. Welcome back, everybody. So happy you're with us this afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us here on Fox Local, whether you're streaming on your mobile device on our Fox Local free streaming app, which is fantastic, has so much to offer on there. If you're watching on one of your live channels at home and you haven't downloaded the app on the phone, go ahead and do it. It's just, there's tons of resources on there. You'll love it. If you're watching through one of our social media platforms on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube at Fox 5 Atlanta, we welcome you and your comments as well. Always interesting to read up on what you have to say on some of the stories that we're covering this afternoon. Or if you're listening to us on the radio on 107.9 HD2 FM, certainly glad you're listening and keeping up with us today. You know, in Douglasville, they're offering a new interactive exhibit. This is designed to unlock the history of fair housing in Georgia, something we talk a lot about, but we don't know a lot about the history of it. The Keys to Equity invites families and students to explore how past policies have shaped our neighborhoods today. And our Chris Rosenthal is there.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the Keys to Equity Fair Housing exhibit. I've been getting a little bit of a tour here throughout the day with the curator, Amy McCoy. I'll introduce you here in a second. But yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating. It's kind of a history lesson here, starting with, you know, the 1800s going all the way up to now, and just seeing how how policies and laws and acts that have been enacted really shaped real estate, it shaped our communities, shaped the roads, shaped the neighborhoods that we live in. You can see some of the effects of this even here in the metro Atlanta area, and I think this exhibit kind of helps tie a lot of that together through, there's about 50 or so panels here that are really interesting and interactive way to walk around here at this free exhibit here in Douglasville. This is, by the way, at the Hunter Memorial Park here in Douglasville. Started last week, goes till April 25th. So, but I'm joined by April McCoy. She is the curator of this exhibit here and real estate expert. And just, first of all, why do this exhibit? What's the message here?
So I've been in real estate over 22 years, and being a practitioner in the industry, I get to see what happens to people when they're trying to buy and sell. I see the impacts of just sometimes people judging a book by its color, and I, being a practitioner, can recognize that there are certain violations happening with fair housing. And as we see how policies are being written today, I see them as a constant reminder of laws that have been not enforced, and so it sets a new behavior. And so I figured, what's the best way I can get and teach people how to advocate for themselves is showing them how we can connect all the dots, so that we're not making the systemic mistakes of the past. Again, we're not repeating those. And so I really wanted to showcase that, and so. Yeah, 50 different panels.
Yeah, so I mean, and Amy, this is this really very comprehensive sense of history here. I mean, we can't get to all of them, unfortunately, in the next few minutes, but we can highlight a few. I mean, we've heard the term redlining. I mean,
yes.
Talk to me about this one here.
So redlining was a big thing, and just as you can see from this panel, it kind of started from the Great Depression, and it talked about how when we were going to start allowing homes to be purchased, who are we giving those type of loans to? And so the Homeowners Loan Corporation decided to create what we have as coding the map, making green the best, blue still desirable, yellow definitely declining, and then red. That is where the term redlining comes from, because those were considered the hazardous areas. And unfortunately, most minorities were then pushed to that area. So when you look at the type of resources that were accessible during that time, they were prohibited. That came from not just from lending institutions, from insurance, things of those sorts. And that's major, because even though the federal government helped in not necessarily causing the segregation, they institutionalized it, which kind of led into how the mortgage underwriting the mortgage underlining policies kind of came into place, and then people had to kind of create ways of how they're able to maneuver around the country. So that's why we also introduced the Green Book. But even with that, you had redlining that came in even with the type of public housing. Redlining in a sense of, because when we think about how our schools are funded, where we worked so hard to make sure that schools were integrated, we still have that challenge today of segregation, because again, if we're not being intentional to making inclusive communities, we're repeating the past of segregation. So it's very key to making sure we tie those in together.
And it's interesting, go through, we start back to the 1830s, I mean, all the way to 1968 here. I mean,
1968, yes, where the Fair Housing Act was finally passed. Unfortunately, at the demise of such a powerful civil rights leader of Dr. Martin Luther King, and it's unfortunate that talking about housing equity and equality unfortunately caused his demise. But that's just how important, because housing is tied to your voting.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the cool things about this exhibit, guys, is it's you also tie it. All these panels have kind of a tie to Georgia and to Atlanta. So
absolutely.
Even though we talk about a lot of these federal laws, things presidents may have done, these things have an effect here back on our home, huh?
Yeah, because it has changed. Everything has evolved in terms of, we're not doing so much of underwriting manually, right, as much as it maybe now we're using data that we can find online. But even the algorithms have a level of bias. Hi, thank you for coming. We also are talking about how we've had to expand protections. But I also want to make sure that the public understands that even today, here it is in 2026, fair housing still needs to be enforced. We still need to make sure that we're strengthening our education about it, because just in the last year, you have policies that we're now eliminating. This is not a political exhibit. This is about making sure people are informed about the laws that are on the books and how we're enforcing them. So if we're eliminating furthering fair housing, if we're eliminating how disparate impact is brought within a community, if we're eliminating Dodd-Frank, these are those things that will impact how the next generation is able to, one, acquire a home, to be able to finance that home if they need to be able to get assistance to maintain that house. We need to make sure that it is equitable and it is very inclusive.
Amy, thank you for joining us. It really is kind of a through line here between, just a walk through history, again, of fair housing laws and practices, and very informational. Again, if you want to come visit this, it is open from 2 to 6, Monday through Friday, free here in Douglasville at the Hunter Memorial Park, and also open in the mornings for students, for school groups and otherwise, and Monday through Friday, but also April 11th, which is a Saturday, will also be open. You can come see it then. Again, completely free.
What an awesome resource, Chris. Thanks so much for the walkthrough and for talking to us about the evolution of fair housing, a great place for young students to go and learn about how our society, as it relates to housing, actually evolves. Such an important resource and a great exhibit. The Federal Reserve Chairman is speaking at Harvard University. Jerome Powell talking about discussions involving economics at the Ivy League University. He says the Federal Reserve is committed to bringing inflation back to 2%, but they are prepared to wait and see how the Iran war, tariff, inflation, and other factors are going to affect the economy.
We've been coming down close to 2% post-pandemic, but we've never actually, gotten right and stayed at 2%. So it's been a while. And we're very mindful of that fact. Inflation expectations do appear to be well anchored beyond the short term, but nonetheless, it's something as we will eventually maybe face the question of what to do here. We're not really facing it yet because we don't know what the economic effects will be. The FOMC is and will continue to be committed to getting inflation back to 2% on a sustained basis. That's the place to start. A situation like the present situation where there's sort of downside risk to the labor market, which suggests keep rates low, but there's upside risk to inflation, which suggests maybe don't keep rates low. You've got tension between the two objectives. And I think to try to expect unanimity at a time like that, where it's really quite historically challenging, it would almost be misleading to be really confident in which way that should go. And we've had to face a much smaller source of inflation, which is the tariff inflation is visible, and we think it's really just a one-time price increase. That's been our thinking since the beginning. Right now, we think it's adding somewhere between 0.5 and a full percentage point to inflation, but that's a much smaller thing than we saw during the pandemic inflation. And and of course now we're facing events in the Middle East which will certainly affect gas prices, and we feel like our policy is in a good place for us to wait and see how that turns out.
And this discussion marks one of the final for Fed Chairman Jerome Powell before the end of his term coming up here in May. As we continue here, it's a story we've been following for quite some time. These huge amounts of tires dumped behind one of our local churches. Well, some arrests have finally been made, and we're going to talk about that when we come back. Hey everybody, welcome back. So happy you're streaming with us here on Fox Local today on this Monday afternoon. I'm Tom Haynes with you live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. We have a big update on a story that we've been covering for quite some time here. DeKalb County police have arrested 10 people, we understand, accused of dumping huge amounts of tires behind a church in our area. The latest case involved more than 300 tires dumped overnight at the Temple of Faith Apostolic Church. Officers tracked down one suspect in a U-Haul truck, but they're still searching for others with outstanding warrants. But again, at least 10 people have been arrested. Investigators are urging anybody with clues to come forward, but they gave us some more details as to how this arrest went down.
Good morning, everyone. And let me begin by saying thank you for coming out this morning to engage in what we consider to be one of the greatest threats to public safety that DeKalb County has at this time, and that is illegal tire dumping. Today we're here to talk about an issue that directly affects the quality of life of our residents and our neighborhoods. And I want to be clear that tire dumping is a major issue in DeKalb County and in many jurisdictions across the state. It's an environmental issue, it is a matter of public safety, public health, and it is also a direct attack on our communities. Our initial tire cleanup removal yielded over 30,000 tires being removed from locations across DeKalb County. DeKalb is being strategic in cleaning up our communities. And over the past several months, we have doubled down and intensified our effort to bring to justice individuals who illegally dump tires across the county. It has led to us holding individuals accountable, and as a result, we have made several arrests with several outstanding warrants. This sends a clear message that illegal dumping will not be tolerated in DeKalb County. And also, we will find you and we will hold you accountable. Illegal tire dumping is costing DeKalb County thousands of dollars and its taxpayers. Money that could be better used for public safety as well as community beautification. We also recognize that some residents and businesses need a legal and responsible way to dispose of their tires. That is why DeKalb County created a tire amnesty program where we gladly receive tires. So there is no reason in DeKalb County, if you are a DeKalb resident, to illegally dump tires. The program provides an opportunity to dispose of tires at absolutely no cost, and it reduces illegal tire dumping while helping us keep our communities safe. Because the true cost of illegal dumping occurs when we are being responsive instead of being proactive. So today our message is quite simple. We are serious about enforcement, we're serious about solutions, and we are serious about cleaning up our communities and holding individuals who illegally dump tires responsible. We're asking our residents to partner alongside us. If you see something, please say something. We need you to report illegal dumping, and also we need individuals to take advantage of the tire amnesty program. We have found across DeKalb that some of the major perpetrators of illegal tire dumping are companies who are being paid to properly dispose of tires. We will not tolerate your behavior. Today, we will also circulate photos of suspects who are wanted for illegal tire dumping. In DeKalb County, this is a new approach. Illegally dump, and you will find yourselves in front of the news. Every community deserves to be respected, it deserves to be protected, and also free from blight. This is about more than tires. It is about our neighborhoods, and it is about the quality of life of DeKalb County residents. So thank you, and at this time, Chief Pedrick will come forward and share more information about our recent focus on identifying and arresting perpetrators of illegal tire dumping.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam CEO. The DeKalb County Police Department is reinforcing its crackdown on illegal tire dumping across our communities. Since the launch of our Digital Shield program, our investigators have arrested 10 individuals connected.
Was Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, who you were listening to for the majority of that time, the DeKalb County CEO, in addition to other officials there talking about illegal tire dumping, that it will not be tolerated, that they've arrested 10 people as it related to the huge tire dump behind that church that they had to clean up, hundreds of tires just dumped back there, and that they are offering tire dumping amnesty programs. All right, they want you to do it through the proper channels and the proper protocols. Want to hit some breaking news real quick before we leave you this afternoon. Gwinnett County officials on the scene in there where there were reports of a suspicious man, according to police, attempting to enter multiple homes within that neighborhood. The individual observed holding a firearm. Looks like they're either looking for someone or they have that person in custody. We'll continue to follow developments out of DeKalb County, and we'll have the very latest here coming up next on Fox 5 News at 4. Thanks so much for joining us here for the 3 p.m. streaming hour. Don't go anywhere. The news continues right here, right now.